All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. David Patrick Harry, and this is Church of the Eternal Logos, and we are hosting an open panel tonight for a bit of a somber topic. I'm sure everybody in the chat already knows. Charlie Kirk, the conservative political commentator and founder of Turning Point USA, was assassinated today at Utah Valley University while doing one of his campus debates where he allows people that disagree with him to have cordial, friendly political discussions on a variety of topics. And during a period in which he was discussing trans violence, somebody shot him through the neck. It's believed to be clearly an assassination attempt. There's a lot of confusion at first. I've been trying to follow everything and listen to some of the latest press conferences on the topic. And it sounds like it was definitely rifle. There's a video of a man potentially laying on one of the roofs of the surrounding buildings. And obviously, most people probably in the chat have already seen the video where the bullet goes through his neck and the exit wound is profound, to say the least. When I saw the video, I was actually at the gym with my wife, and we had she mentioned she was getting news alerts in German. She actually saw it before I was. I was kind of in my own world listening to music, and she came up to me and told me that Charlie Kirk was shot. So then we looked into it, and I'm sure most of you guys also saw the live video or a clip of the live feed, because this was, he does live streaming and records all these things. And I didn't expect him to live. Apparently, they're able to keep things together, and I think for another 45 minutes, and he was taken to the ER. He was 31 years old, married, and had 2 children. So I think what is most profound about it, and so Dr. Michael Moeller is with me. I think FDA is going to be stopping by. I think Baselit Analyzer is going to be stopping by. I'm going to open up the link so anybody who wants to join will be able to join and talk about things today. And obviously to say from the start, everybody's saying, obviously we're Orthodox Christians. Obviously we had some political disagreements, but I don't think we need every time we say, we're praying for the soul of Charlie Kirk and his family, his wife and his children, that we have to always recognize that we had differences. Obviously we had differences. He seemed like a pretty sincere individual. And I think for me, what was so profound about it all is that could have been anybody. And so obviously Charlie Kirk is incredibly influential, especially amongst young people and college-age kids. But anybody who's right of center, that could have been today. And it definitely feels like it's a turning point in American culture. I think, especially for the younger generation, like the Gen Z, maybe Gen Alpha, but millennials, this is going to be a day in which a lot of people will remember. And obviously it just came off the heels of the tragedy in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm going to pull up, as we go through today, I'm going to pull up Charlie Kirk's X account, because it's interesting, his last few posts. And I'm going to play a video that's been going around too, is that for us Orthodox Christians, obviously he's evangelical and Protestant, but he used his platform this week to try to encourage Protestants and evangelicals to venerate the Theotokos more. And so whatever disagreements we had, he was a sincere individual. And for him to be the target of an assassination, especially for anybody who would consider themselves maybe more right-wing than even Charlie Kirk, it kind of shows the temperament and the temperature of American culture right now. So anyways, Dr. Mo, thanks for joining. What's your thoughts on everything?
I mean, what can you say? Like, man, heartbreaking. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. If you're a human being and you watch some of that, I don't know how your heart doesn't break. A father, two kids, and yeah, obviously, like you said, we may have some differences in our political opinions, our theology. What I will say is I do think he had a heart for God. That's one of our positions. Like,
yeah,
we'll be judged how we judge other people. And that guy's probably done a lot more good than I have. I think he's inspired a lot of people to think differently, and in a lot of the same way, we share the same mission. And going to college campuses with the woke mind virus, and in a way, he's definitely a martyr. He knew what he was getting himself into. And say what you will, but that was a brave man. how often he would go there. And, you know, there was a little bit of rage baiting. But either way you look at it, it's heartbreaking. And again, say what you will about him, I think he had a heart after God, and he you know, he was changing. Like you know, there's some whispers around the internet. I think there was a couple interesting news posts about him these last couple of weeks, like you're saying, venerating the Theotokos and maybe questioning some of our America's allies. Makes you
Yeah.
kind of wonder some stuff. You
Well,
hate to
we can just and we
Go
can
ahead.
be straightforward. You know, Harrison Smith, who ironically, I was live last night. My stream got taken down by YouTube. It got removed. But we were doing a drama alert and talking about all the news and things going on. And I mentioned that I met Harrison Smith at one of the events in Nashville, and he seemed like a really sincere guy. And I was talking about the Owen Schroyer, Alex Jones fallout. And Harrison Smith posted some stuff after the event, or after this tragic event, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, that I don't know on what information, but insinuating that maybe some of his opinions about Israel were shifting, and that according to what Harrison Smith posted, he was potentially worried about, you know, anything that might happen, potential violence to him. Now, obviously, we have a massive problem with trans violence in this country. However, just my intuition is that this was not some like half retard or trans, you know, social justice warrior. I think this was a planned out assassination. I think it was somebody that was expertly trained. It seems like it was potentially like a 308 off at a distance, elevated. And they took him out in his neck, which I don't think it was, you know, accident or luck that they happened to tag him. I think it's indicative of sort of a message. I mean, symbolic of silencing someone, right?
Yeah.
Right through his throat. So I don't know. I know that last I've heard, I checked right before we went live, there was nobody in custody. That may be changing. We're going to try to follow stuff for the next couple hours while people come on and kind of discuss the topic. So,
Yeah, and like you said, man, the one thing is to be vigilant. I think now, you know, we pray for his soul, pray for our nation. Like honestly, with the Charlottesville, or it was in Charlotte, North Carolina, the
Charlotte,
stabbing,
North Carolina.
like man, things are on edge.
Yeah,
You know, and you don't want things to get worse, and it's pretty easy to get bitter. My good friend Reader Seraphim had shared the quote by, I think it's Saint Paisios, that you know, I'd be crazy if I didn't know who was in charge of the world, kind of thing. With how the modern world is, I'm kind of butchering the quote. Man, the hard part is that, like, not getting bitter, not getting upset, not getting angry, and at the same time, it's like, dude, we saw them take shots at Donald Trump. We felt the energy slowly building up, especially I'd say 2016 onwards with COVID. I mean, I tell this story, right? I was born and raised in Southern Illinois, and as I went through college, I became more libertarian, more liberal. And when I got to Southern California and I met some people there, I'm like, I don't know how there isn't a civil war in like 10 years. And that was 2013. Just listen, you know, like I moved into with some hardcore feminists. And at that point, I was still kind of center libertarian. But after kind of living with them for a little bit, I'm like, this does not smell good. You know what I mean? This does not look good for us. So,
right.
Yeah. So we pray and we try and not get bitter. And at the same time, you want to stay vigilant. Because I was wondering too, after it first happened, like, did someone take a video and then edit it with AI and send that out just to get clicks? Like, it was hard.
Yeah, I was kind of skeptical when I first saw it too. You know, like I said, I was at the gym and my wife told me, and she was getting it in German, which is again kind of indicative of how influential Charlie Kirk was what, you know, the quote unquote MAGA movement. That German news was sending immediate breaking news alerts about Charlie Kirk, and so that's how she found out before I did. But when I first saw the video on X, it was like when I opened X, it was like the first thing that popped up. And I thought, no way. And then I just scrolled a little bit and I saw everybody's comments and I saw, people that are friendly with Charlie Kirk, take it pretty seriously. And I was like, oh my God. And like I said, I think it just symbolizes where we're at in in the country, and everybody's saying this is a turning point, and it's hard to say what that turning point is, especially once we find out potentially who this actual shooter is. If it is racially motivated, or it's his commentary on trans stuff, or we find that maybe this was something much deeper and more organized. But like I said to open, I think what's so profound about it and why it shakes a lot of people is, one, he was so young. He's 31. He's at the height of his career. He's got 2 children, planned on having more children, sincere Protestant, Christian, evangelical. But that could have been anybody. And Charlie Kirk is so kind in his debates to these people
overall
that for him to be the target, it's like, wow, that could be anybody with a public following doing a public event with somebody deciding that, you're too extreme. And for most of us as traditional Christians, Orthodox Christians, on some topics, we're, more right than Charlie Kirk was. So,
well, and to reflect, to give some extra mercy between the two of us, welcome, Father Deacon.
Welcome, Father Deacon, Dr. Ananias.
Where were we at 31?
Yeah.
I was not worth, Lord have mercy. If I'd have been taken at 31, I would not have been at a good place. So, who knows where he'd have been in a couple of years.
31. I was probably doing a PhD. That's a great question. What year was it? Let's see. If I'm 48, how many years ago?
5 years ago for us, DPH, right? You'd have been working.
Oh, dang, getting old. Hold on a second. So I'm 48. What do we say? 31? 17
years ago.
Wow.
Dude, that's crazy.
And yeah, it's just, he's got to, and again, the hard part.
I was in my PhD program. That's crazy.
Well, you were like Calvinist then, or what were you doing? Are you not? What were you?
On the fourth earth. It's not called Calvinism.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting enough. You mean religiously, I wasn't Orthodox yet. I was studying Orthodox and inquiring. I was living in Ireland. I'd actually contacted the local Romanian parish, and I wanted to attend. I got kicked out of the Lutheran church in Ireland for giving them a piece of.
You getting kicked out? No way. I don't believe that.
Like, your kind's not welcome here. I'm like, oh,
like, dude, not so your kind right
here. I was just trying to kind of build my own theology, where I was like, oh, I'm liking this Orthodox stuff, and I'll take a little bit of this and high sacramentology and maybe a little bit of authority here. And so, God help me. But I was on my way. To being prepared.
Well, Father, what are your thoughts about
I have a lot.
The assassination? Well, share.
So it will come out who this guy is. Bets are he's, I don't know if it was some type of intelligence operative or activator or something like that. If he's going to be a Democrat, like odds are it is. But the fact of the matter, even if we don't grant that, looks what's going on in social media. Between the stuff with the poor Ukrainian girl that got murdered, and then the left and Democrats are cheering on. I mean, they've been wearing and saying, kill all white people, kill, all conservatives. They're wearing calls for violence on the governor of Minnesota with a knife.
Yep.
It's just become apparent to me, and I think Jay pointed this out on his Twitter too, and I'm just going to say it. There's no way that you can be a Christian and vote Democrat and be liberal. I'm sorry.
No.
Like, I know that's not a popular opinion, and I mean, despite whatever the problems with conservatives and Republicans are, that doesn't make any of us MAGA or Republicans. Both of you and myself, we have our legitimate critiques of MAGA and Trump.
Sure.
And, I see that, like, Father Turbo was really interesting. I watched his talk at the Ludwell conference, and it was something really important. We do transcend orthodox left and right politics. Now, what a lot of normies here and liberals is, oh yeah, so we're the middle of the road. And Father Turbo actually said the royal path, transcending left and right, is not the middle.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It doesn't mean, because the middle presupposes that the left and right are moral equivalents. And you see this all the time. Libertarians are totally retarded and say the same stuff. Well, they're both bad. It's like, yeah, we have legitimate critiques of MAGA and Trump and Republicans. They are not moral equivalents. They're not the same.
Right.
It doesn't matter the moral flaws of Republican candidates, things that they've been involved in. It is not a Malthusian death cult. It is not. I mean, their party platform is literally death.
Right. No.
And violence. Like, they have a track history of it's radicalism. And we're not living in the 1960s JFK Democrat years anymore. Like, moderate.
To your point, and I'd love to get your opinion, Father Deacon, is what was kind of shocking. I mean, not totally shocking. I mean, we just had the event with Arena in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I remember posting immediately when I saw the video, just by the way that she sat down. I mean, within less than a minute, the guy's pulling out a knife and then he kills her. Those are the actions of somebody who's demonically possessed. And then today it came out, his interview, where he kept referring to they, and that there's different powers that take over his body. And then after this assassination of Charlie Kirk, I just tuned in to the local Utah live stream on the press conference. And I could not believe the messages in the live chat making fun of Charlie Kirk and telling.
I know
I was astonished, and that's a spiritual problem. And it was people both right and left. It was people that were further right of Charlie Kirk that was making fun of him, and then people that, typical left wingers and social justice warriors. And I was just astonished by people's desensitization to tragic events like this and what this actually represents. Obviously it's terrible that Charlie Kirk has passed away, but just the larger cultural repercussion, what it represents in regards to space and time and where we're at as a country. And to see both, people that share a lot of my political ideas mock him. And some people identify as, it's like how the Holy Spirit's clearly not present in you if you cannot sense the sensitivity of everything.
No. And yeah, exactly. And I think a large part of that too, the demonic influence of desensitization, is through social media and the internet and stuff like that. And just being bombarded with, there's no filters, right? We become desensitized. And if you're not combating that with praxis, right, in sacrament, in terms of the sacraments in your spiritual life, even on the right, you're going to get people who are just cold-hearted, demonic, kind of it's like, this is ridiculous. And I think all of us would agree. It's like, I didn't agree with everything with Charlie Kirk.
Of course. Yeah, he's exactly. I mean, everybody knows.
Kick a guy when he's dead and his family's grieving.
Yeah, right. And we all have the same, share a similar opinion on Zionism and how that relates to the theology of the church and all that different stuff. And that was a criticism for Charlie Kirk, is basically it was Zionism and his Protestant faith and kind of his view of America is a little bit different than ours. But, he was a decent person, and to see even people that were, you know, right of center use the Israel thing to immediately say, well, you know, he didn't call out these groups of people. It's like, guys, come on, like, you're not helping a serious, you know, that's a serious conversation we have to have regarding Zionism and the Jewish lobby in America. But you know, maybe we'll find something out regarding intelligence agents or, you know, all this different stuff. But to immediately then mock Charlie Kirk because he was a Zionist, or, you know, I didn't see anything deliberately mocking because he was a Protestant. But just because we have some difference of opinions, I mean, that's just atrocious. I mean, it's a spirit of a lack of the Holy Spirit present within people.
Well, and I'd also,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I would also say the reality of the situation is if you said name the top 5, unfortunately, like Father Deacon's saying, we have this dichotomy, right? Left and right, that they have psychologically manipulated us into. So you kind of have to pick a side. But name the top 5 conservative influencers right now. Is he not probably one of the top 5 in the country?
Oh, easily, yeah.
Like
easily.
outside, even above Paul. Like if you said, "Hey, name 5," if you took Trump out, he's definitely in the top 5.
Yeah.
So I mean, the symbolism of what happened too cannot be understated. Like and whoever was shooting is going to know that was streamed.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
so if you want to talk about the symbolism of assassinating a conservative, white male, family forward Christian, like, you know, those are things, whether or not we agree with some of his theology, those are what he stood for. And so to murder him on TV, like, and, you know, I don't know. I don't really remember the whole thing. Something like George Floyd. I wasn't excited when that happened. I wasn't cheering. Like, someone died, right? God gives life. God's responsibility.
A little bit of a different context, though. He died of a drug overdose.
And that's what I'm saying. Even from our perspective, like, you don't see the conservatives, like, they weren't cheering for it. It was still a tragedy, whether or not. But
well, that's what I think is so striking about this thing, is like, what is going to come out of it? Because, you know, for the normal reactions are sadness, but rage, anger, frustration, you know, and typically what we'd ever refer to as the conservatives or the right wing doesn't loot and riot and do all this stuff. But the desire to do something that extreme, I think, is absolutely present in most people.
When he was also young, right? Someone's in the chat, Gen Z. Like, I have faith in Gen Z. We've chatted about this. I think that, you know, they have strengths and weaknesses, but I don't think being hoodwinked's one of them. I think, and to go after a younger one, like, dude's 31. Like, what? I don't know. I just think.
Well, the other aspect too, why am I blanking on his name? Pale Horse. Remember that?
Oh, Behold the Pale Horse by
I know.
General Cornwallis. It is someone will get it in the chat.
Somebody will get in the chat.
Come on, Bill Cooper.
What's that? Yes, Bill Cooper. Cooper. You know, he was talking about back in the 70s that this stuff, these people were going to be on SSRIs and medications.
Yep.
And in whatever way kind of activated political weapons to assassinate like people. Now people will be like, well, it's all conspiracy. It's like, okay, suppose it is. Suppose this guy's a goof and stuff. Like, he was right. Don't you find that weird? That's exactly what's happened.
Well, in that book, if you remember, he says that your kids will be taught Zionism in school. Like, he breaks it down in that book. Was he say that America, you know, we never really won the war. We're still under the power of the crown. You know, Britain's involved with creating Israel, and your children will be taught Christianity when it's really Zionism. And I don't know. Maybe that's what I'm saying is, like, to me, the definition of what I see in Gen Z is lots, like, right? I had the whole 2009, you're a white privileged male. You can't learn history because you don't come from a place of oppression. And I had to fight that. And I felt pretty much alone in it, where now I've talked to like some 20, 25-year-old Gen Zers. They're like, yeah, screw that. Back then, I was the only person in class arguing by myself. Right. And they're the ones that have been drugged. They're the ones that had way more shots. They're the ones that have had way worse food.
Right.
And so that's what I'm saying. When you look at the symbolism of who Charlie was,
and who he was getting, I mean, TPUSA, again, for whatever disagreements we had, he was getting young people. Like, for example, I have nieces, and they're not the most politically savvy or philosophically savvy, but you know, I know one of my nieces in particular, and she's a student at IU. She's a freshman at IU here in Indiana, and she watches the Charlie Kirk clips, and that has helped shape her and get her more curious and see things from a new perspective that, you know, if I try to tell her or her mom tries to tell her, like, you know, okay, you know, dismissive. But Charlie Kirk was something that, you know, reached my niece. Now, you know, and to see that he was having a huge impact on Gen Zers, like these college kids. And you know, that we can't, and the sort of elephant in the room is that the racial thing, you know, that white college kids found a place to vocalize their opinions. And, you know, Charlie Kirk maybe not have been on all the same opinions we had, but he was normalizing, you know, things that was difficult for me to say at university during my PhD program, you know, in 2000.
No way you just said that, right?
From 2016 to 19, like it was very intense, the restrictions on what could be said.
Someone tried to come to your campus. It wasn't him. It was
well,
Peterson. Who was trying to Milo?
Or right after the so I was in Berkeley when Ben Shapiro and Milo Yiannopoulos did an event where the Berkeley professor hit a kid with a bike lock and busted his head open. And the city dropped those charges. And so that's when I was living there. So it was the height in like political correctness, social justice warrior. Like, as long as you're on the right side, like we'll watch out for you. So
do you know what's interesting about Charlie Kirk and a lot of these people, they're actually pretty moderate.
Yeah.
As far as right wing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you guys better watch your back.
Interesting. They're so hated. So if you watch those reels and clips, right, Charlie Kirk, I mean, they have the protests, like, we don't want you on our campus, right? They actually tried to cancel him, get him off the camp. You can't come here. Then you just have unhinged people screaming and stuff. What that shows me is a manufactured dissent. You know, there's a manufactured consent. This is manufactured because it's the same thing with like Trump. You know, only if Trump really was what the left said he was. Like I feel kind of let down, right? I wish he was what you were saying. He's not. I have some serious criticisms of him, but I mean, he was a Democrat. Same with RFK.
Right.
We have a mayor up here, total like Democrat. And I remember before RFK became the health director and joined up with Trump, he was like, oh yeah, man, I'm going to vote for, like, I like him. And then they turn on it. Right. So it's never principled, right? It's manufactured. These are the people you're supposed to hate. They're actually very moderate. They were once your guys. Trump was a Democrat. So is RFK.
Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat. I forget. There's several people on there. The Democrats won the election. Trump, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard. Those are all Democrats. Those are not conservative people up there.
And so they're programmed to go against it. Like, there's no rational thought process of kind of going through principle. Why stand against these principles? And that's how you know. Like, Charlie Kirk was a pretty moderate.
No, yeah, I would say he was. I mean, he wasn't even, you know, Pat Buchanan. He was left of Pat Buchanan. He was a Protestant Christian conservative, like milquetoast American conservative that's pro-family, which we can resonate with. I mean, I'm all for it. Now, he, because of his theology, had political sentiments towards different things that we didn't have. But I mean, a pro-Christian family orientation, yeah, that's the same side that I'm on.
And so notice the very moderate conservative is given the H word, tiny mustache man,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just saw a news report. This is ridiculous. So, Bozeman police responds to reports. So, Bozeman's a city like an hour and a half, 45 minutes south of me. Response to reports of NAZIS on 19th Avenue overpass. Sunday, several calls were made 9/11 about NAZIS standing on the 19th overpass, right? So what I find funny is like, so it's illegal to, well, first of all, I almost want to make a joke and be like, man, they must have been pretty old.
A lot with the camp survivors, the guy that survived 12 camps too,
All right, so you may not like that political philosophy, like, it's not against the law. Like, there is no political ideology, no matter how bad, that's against the law. But these people are literally calling 911. We found them. Turns out they were just literally holding signs that said "White Lives Matter."
Mm-hmm.
So now it's a little bit more extreme than obviously Charlie Kirk, but like, here's the problem: is that this language and the fact that even Orthodox are using the R word, and I don't mean retarded, that's coming back, and that's a virtuous word. The other word
that has methodological use to describe something.
Stunted growth.
So I did a stream earlier today because we had Dr. David Bradshaw and some other philosophy professors and clergy were in on Monday an online philosophy conference about why we shouldn't use human rights language. And like where human rights language, we went through the different, like the 18th century kind of Enlightenment notion of rights to the 20th century to the 21st century, completely secularized postmodern kind of notion of rights and UN documents, Declaration of Human Rights and stuff like this. And the thing is, these are weaponized words. The R word, even the N word, and I don't mean in terms of racial color, human rights, equity, like all these are weaponized words that are anti-Christian, to destroy Christianity. And it's like, and the other thing is they incite violence. I mean, think about it. If everybody's a tiny mustache man, right? And they're out to kill and Holocaust everybody, right? Like, I mean, you create a mass psychosis.
Right.
I mean, these people, this is why these people are acting violent. Like, everybody's the enemy. And like, even just the most watered down conservative, that's what they're saying. All these people need to be killed. Now, what's interesting, I brought this up with a parishioner. So notice they're always like, everybody's a fascist. You keep preaching that. Do you know what's going to happen? And the left is notorious.
Yep.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yep.
The only, like, you've now created an environment, the only political solution to this is fascism, which is exactly why fascism arose in the 20th century too. That is because in reaction to Bolshevism and Marxism and stuff like that. So isn't that interesting? The one thing that you hate and you keep calling and using this is exactly what you're going to create. And that's why I said the left and liberals created Trump. They voted him in.
Right.
Yep.
I'm like, you guys literally created, like, the more that you push this kind of rhetoric and use this stuff, it creates the exact thing that you don't want.
Right.
You've seen the meme. It's like, who radicalized you? You did. Right.
Yes.
And this is kind of what I was saying about the Gen Z, where, they grew up in this whole, and I hate to be as particular, but if you're a white male, like, all of human history is your fault. So you have all these kids growing up from the time you're in third grade, like, it's your fault from the Civil War. Like, I'm German, right? So, it's like being in third grade. Oh yeah, you guys, you're the ones that killed all the Jews. And I was like, and it's funny, I'm actually German Polish. And if you look at the stats, they killed a heck of a lot of Poles.
Yeah.
And, also the commies killed a lot of Poles and blamed the Germans when it was actually the commies. Didn't learn much about that.
Yeah.
But you can imagine the mental health disruption where all these boys are growing up without fathers, and then they go into school and they're taught that they're the devil. Like, no wonder they're transgender.
Well, and
Honestly,
another sociological factor is when you look at like minority groups. So whoever it may be, like Armenians, for example, historically persecuted. You know, a lot of long identity, but when they come to America, they're very insular, and it creates identity in a postmodern world in which identity is, you know, distorted. And so because the Gen Z has grown up in it, like I'm a millennial, but because of where I come from in Indiana, like I never got any of the bad white male stuff. Even in undergrad, it wasn't as bad in Indianapolis. But once 2015 rolled around, it was very, very normative to speak in those terms. So I remember master's degree, PhD, very much that was the sentiment of the university. And then the Gen Z boys growing up in that from, you know, K through 12, they become hyper self-aware of the identity that other people placed on them. Yeah. And that allows them to be more right-wing than any generation before, which is the only countermeasure to the things that are happening. But like to Father Deacon's point, it's the sociological pressure that is forming these identities and inculcating, you know, more and more right-wing opinions, which again, I think that's the only way out of this. And given what happened in Charlotte, North Carolina, I mean, tensions were already super high regarding the, you know, and I covered it last night. The stream got removed from YouTube. But just the, you know, the racial tensions and the unspeakable thing about crime going on and white people being attacked and the skewing of the crime statistics. And then for Charlie Kirk to be, that was his, like, for example, you know, I'll pull up his ex. That was his last post. His last post was saying how we have to politicize what happened in Charlotte, North Carolina, because there's a legitimate attack on white people. And that was when, you know, it was just like 5 hours ago that he posted it. So this was one of his last messages right before those debates started. And I'll pull it up real quick. But
I want to share something with you too. He's a friend of mine, but if you're looking for an academic treatment of this, just 1 second.
So here's like you go to Charlie Kirk's X account. So 6 hours ago, so this was right before those debates started, he posted, "If we want things to change, it's 100% necessary to politicize the senseless murder of Irina Zarutska, because it was politics that allowed a savage monster with 14 priors to be free on the streets to kill her." And you know, and then he just posted the hypocrisy that I covered the night before on CNN, where they essentially lambast Charlie Kirk because he's recognizing the racial overtones of that attack and saying, "Oh, well, he's the only one that's making it racial," when that's all they do is make things racial. And for him to, you know, make that the last post when already you could feel like culture is changing, something is brewing. Like I'm not totally positive where this goes, but for better or for worse, I think it's going to radicalize more people towards the right, and hopefully, God willing, it brings more young people to Christ.
Yeah, to me, I just hope we remain peaceful is the issue. You know what I mean? Like I told you when I moved, I was like, you guys keep talking this way, and it's like if you actually looked at, I don't know, any kind of like Civil War, any part of history, you can take Germany in the 1930s and 40s. Like what was going on that people became radicalized? They just like, oh, these radicalized people are bad. Okay, well, if you're a doctor, what do? You try and look at the cause of the disease. And is that not why we study history? Is that not we study philosophy? And you want to look at how did people get radicalized?
Right.
And if they just take a second and look at that, then they'd realize they are the pawns. They are the tools for the radicalization. And, you know, honestly, from the Orthodox or the Christian perspective, this is the hardest part, is that Christ dies for the sin. And I'm not saying that we're all striving to be like Christ, but we're the ones that end up having to sacrifice, right? You're the one, like, if you sit there and you're attacked and you're told, okay, you're a white male, it's your fault that the country's this way, the Civil War, I'm German, World War II is my fault. And the only way you get through that, though, is bearing that and then going on. Like, you don't beat it with falling into the system that they've given us. Like Father Deacon was saying, they put us in these false dichotomies, and the only way through is to play their stupid game. And like Christ didn't play their game. You know what I mean?
Well, I want to make a point about another post he made 8 hours ago. So today, he was recognizing that the official Black Lives Matter account, I believe it was on Instagram, posted a video, and obviously regarding the Arena situation and her murder on the public bus, where it states that Black people have a right to violence. And so he posted that 8 hours ago. Official Black Lives Matter account justifying the murder of Arena, and literally that happened to him just 3 to 4 hours later.
Yeah, and he had a really nice.
By the way, I want to give a shout out to.
Go ahead, Dean.
I want to give a shout out to Father Turbo because can you hear me okay? At the Ludwell conference, he actually called out BLM and the Fellowship of St. Moses the Black, too, which he was actually part of and helped form and stuff like that. And the reason why is because they're anti-Orthodox. They put ideology before the cross. And, I was telling somebody who was worried about, like, white supremacists coming into the Orthodox Church and stuff like that. And, I was saying those people aren't a problem. In fact, I think it was Father Russell, somebody, told a story that somebody was like, are you worried about white supremacists coming into the Orthodox Church? Says, no, where else are they going to be saved? Right. And it's like, and for me, and it's what you talked about, and I was trying to tell somebody who was all worried about this, that, look, they're just young kids. They're immature. Michael, you're talking about the Gen Z. I'm like, they've had anti-whiteism shoved down their throats the whole time, saying basically kill yourself.
Right.
That you should everybody should love their own ethnicity and their traditions and where they came from. Everybody has a right to self-preservation and determination and preserving one's culture. I would hate to see that go away, except for whites. That's supposed to be dissolved. They've been shoved this down, and they're young. And what do you do when you're young? You overreact. The thing is, though, those guys are quickly healed in the church. Why? Because they don't have a postmodern relativistic and progressive leftist mindset that basically tradition and hierarchy and patriarchy are evil and need to be destroyed and changed. The church needs to change. I mean, so the people that heal the fastest, everybody has problems. We all have problems coming into the Orthodox Church. I don't worry about them. They get healed and changed pretty quick. You know who doesn't? It's really rare. Liberals, Democrats, and leftists.
The ones pushing for the deaconesses.
Yeah, exactly. Like they don't change. They're much more of a problem. And like Jay said, so it's about time that clergy stop calling out ortho bros and start calling out this stuff. They'll never touch it. Denounce BLM. Denounce the Democratic, the DNC.
Right.
Denounce all these. Well, they're afraid. You know why?
They're afraid of being political.
Oh, it's political. Yeah, they'll lose. NAZIS, right? And white supremacy and stuff like, well, that has no, and orthodox, because that's the real problem in the world, is young people.
Right.
Young people. They won't ever call that out. You know why? They'll lose parishioners, which just proves the point that Democrats and liberals are ideologues and idolaters. If you're going to leave the church because I can't vote for Biden, because there's something wrong with voting with literally the party that's kicked out. You can't even be Christian and Democrat anymore. They literally kick you out of the party. They're like, if you're not a pro-abortion, you can't work for the party.
Right.
And it's like, so you're going to choose that platform, the anti-natalist, the anti-abortion, the pro-abortion, the pro-diddle kids, Skittles, suicide cult that's literally invoking violence and killing people. Like, you're going to go with that over the church. How sad is that? And priests are afraid to touch it.
Right.
They need to man up and be like, you know what? If you leave the church over that, to your own detriment. That's sad.
Well, and how
'Cause
much
you
that
put
makes
politics
makes
over.
well, I'm saying that makes those guys so much stronger. Honestly, that's why I actually have hope for Gen Z, because 90% of them are pretty infected with the for lack of a better term, a weakness virus. And 10% of them are going to be super strong. They're going to come out with not caring about anything and speaking the truth and going at it. That's why I have faith in them, because they went through it. Luckily I went through it at, like you were saying, DPH. I was 19 or 20 before I really had to stand up for myself in college, where I got the whole, you're a white male.
I've had 3 Catholics in the chat say stuff like this, that it's tragic he didn't convert to the Catholic Church and is now in hell. I've counted 3 posts from Roman Catholics that say Charlie Kirk is in hell because he's not Roman Catholic.
You know what? Keep it up, guys. You guys are the greatest apologists for orthodoxy. Like,
we'll pray for him.
I mean, yeah. You know what? There was a guy that came into orthodoxy, a parishioner here. He was a Calvinist. You know why he left? Because he was mourning some girl, this poor little girl that died in a tragic car accident, right? And he had a theodicy problem. He asked his Calvinist Presbyterian pastor, of the problem of evil. Why did God have this? And he says, she deserves it, and we all do. Thank God he just favors me. And he left Calvinism. Like, so this is the same kind of attitude that he's burning in hell.
Yeah, I've counted 3 of them. All of them. Now, whether they're troll accounts, I don't know. But 3 people who identified as Roman Catholic made a point that it's sad he died, but because he wasn't Catholic, he's burning in hell.
I thought the Pope said all religions are a way to heaven.
Yeah. They're not Catholic. Yeah, exactly. They actually violate Vatican II. Oh, Vatican II's not an ecumenical. It's not binding. Well, it's not what Vatican I says. So these people are absolute hypocrites and jokes. They're not even Catholic by Catholic standards.
Yeah, the thing is, Rome has, even before Vatican II, Rome has canonized individuals who are not part of the Roman Catholic Church at all. They canonized Saint Sergei of Radonezh. That's. Oh, wow. Yeah, and there's another Russian saint, Saint Abram of, forgetting where, but he was a miracle worker, did tons and tons of miracles centuries ago, and it was such an issue that the then Pope canonized him as well. So it's not like, even in the pre-Vatican II, pre-Vatican I, Roman Catholic actual practice, they did actually canonize and venerate Eastern Orthodox saints that were post-schism, which is, of course, one could point out that that's inconsistent with the framework of their theology, but it's just that's what people did as how they lived out their faith. And this attitude that those 3 are demonstrating, be they troll accounts or not, that is in direct contradiction with how the Roman Catholic faith was lived out centuries ago.
Right. Jose, welcome to the panel, brother.
What's up, Jose?
Thank you.
I'm going to catch up. We had a few super chats, but before we do, I wanted to give you space if you had anything you wanted to say, about really what this event and the assassination of Charlie Kirk represents, or your just sort of takeaway, or anything you want to share regarding that.
Yeah, I see parallels with the Spanish Civil War. It's the left is really a death cult, but they do not understand. They perceive as enemies. That's the thing. So Charlie Kirk is a moderate rightist.
Right. That's what we were talking about. He's very moderate.
Extremely moderate. He's like a moderate, not even like a moderate. He's not even like a Burkean version of conservative. He's like a moderate.
Right. That's why I say he's not even Pat Buchanan. He's not Edmund Burke.
Exactly. So it's like he's if you kill off because that's what they will do, as you kill off those who are literally the individuals closest to the American left or the tradition of the American left, like traditional American liberalism, freedom of speech, yada, yada. The only people you're going to have left are those who are actually right wing. And when that happens, that's what happened in Spain. What ends up happening when, you have, in the case of Spain, the Spanish Republicans, which was a union of communists and anarchists. What happens when they start, massacring clergy and monastics? etc., and cracking down and trying to stop people from, worshiping Jesus Christ. Like, since they killed if you removed all the moderates and all you have are those who actually stand for something, well, you're going to get violence. And that's, in a sense,
Jose, that's what we said. It's amazing. I'm like, they literally produce the thing that they want eliminated and not present. I'm like, that's why I'm like, just keep like, you're removing, like you said, Jose, you're removing all the kind of moderates. What you're going to get is the only thing that's going to be left is fascism, which is exactly how fascism arose historically in Spain and Italy and Germany and Romania, etc.
Yeah, and it's a matter of also because fundamentally these are not people who are truly in control of themselves. They're under a demonic influence, and the goal of the demons is they just want blood. And when you have a population group which is highly susceptible, that has whatever passions it takes to be a full-blown leftist, when you have that level of mimetic possession in your brain, for lack of a better term, right. The ability, like, what do you call it? That these people are essentially just, kind of like with the issue of the recent, school shooters, all happen to be of a, certain subset group who are, what do you call it? These are prime targets for, the demons to throw their darts and, suggest, horrific acts to do. And unfortunately, it's going to keep scaling. I know.
Well, to your point, Jose, I'll let you continue, but the man, the black that killed Irina on the bus in Charlotte, I don't know if you saw the video today where he was talking about he's a diagnosed schizophrenic and talking about how different entities take over his material body. And he was talking about how he's not sure why he killed her. He has no idea. They just took over and, he stabbed her right in the throat. But again, notice both times they killed them in the, it's through the throat. Now, whether this is coincidence or not, I think, I personally believe that whoever's behind the Kirk assassination was trained. I mean, it was, from the videos that we're seeing, and even according to some of the officers, I was watching the live stream of the local press conference before we came live. Somebody was on the roof, and the police are trying to now track that individual, but they have CCTV that a guy was laying prone on the roof in the back of behind everybody. So, this wasn't your normal, social justice warrior. And I assume if they are trained, the shooting through his neck is a symbolic act. Irina was stabbed in her neck by the guy that was, clearly he's possessed by demons. He's openly talking about how they take over his body. And so to your point, this is, the demons are acting through these people that are already broken inside.
Yep. And it's fundamentally, unfortunately, it's, there are a lot of people who saw that, and this is the path where America is going. I know in my case, I mean, if you want to talk about saying things that get you in trouble. So in 2005, I was still a teenager then. I made the conclusion and stated to people in school that was probably bad in hindsight, was that all of American politics was going to boil down to those who see essaying children as being a morally praiseworthy act that should be celebrated in public, versus those who see it as horrific and it must be punishable by unaliving, and trying to keep that as terms and service, terms and conditions friendly for YouTube. But, a lot of people were kind of shocked when I said that, back in 2005. And I was known for being, for lack of a better term, one of saying crazy things in high school. But yeah, that's where we're at. And the thing is, there are people who saw it even before me. I know I've mentioned, the guy who's now the chief ideologist of the Chinese Communist Party of China, Wang Hunan. Like, he saw that back in 1991. So there are people who saw, like, this is where the West is going. And that unfortunately, I don't see the train ride ending unless you have like some serious mass repentance. I mean, there is repentance happening, as Father Deacon can attest to, and I can as well. And in our parishes, there's a flood, especially of young men. Unfortunately, as Father Deacon was saying, there's a lot of hostility from those who are ideologists first and Orthodox second, to the young men that are coming in. But the thing is, even like if you look at like actual white nationalists, white supremacists that I've met here in Texas, like, the common thing I see is when the ones who are married, they're not married to a white girl. They're usually either married to a Tejana or an Asian girl. And there was one guy I know, and because through my mother's side, I have Colombian heritage, So he left the country for the first time, as a young man for work, went down to Colombia, and he was on the coast, the Pacific coast, Buenaventura, and then up into Chocó. This is like literally the blackest part of all of Hispanidad. Like anywhere you go, this is like little Africa, except everyone's speaking Spanish. And there was one of the Colombianas there saw a white boy who has a good job and makes money, and saw that he had no, girlfriend or anything, and decided to, be the traditional woman and, cook him fish and everything else. And he ended up marrying her. And it was hilarious. I found out because, we got a mutual friend. It was through that mutual friend. He called her a mutual friend. And he was like, hey, I got a problem. He's like, what's the problem? And he's like, so I married a Colombian girl. And he was thinking like, all right, you're like vocal white supremacist guy and you married a Colombian girl. Like, and so my friend the mutual friend asked him, well, is she on the lighter side? And he said, yeah, kind of. And my mutual friend was like, what do you mean kind of? And he was like, gosh, she's from Buenaventura. And then I break out laughing. So it's, he married like literally every American would say black, like literally like there's very little shades blacker than that as far as Colombian girls go. And because fundamentally what a lot of these young guys who fall into white nationalism or white supremacism, they're looking for something that doesn't hate them. And so like this guy, the only reason he was into white nationalism as youth, because as Father Deacon mentioned, his entire schooling since his kindergarten, he's told every single day of his life, you're the problem. You're the reason why the world is messed up, and it's your fault. And that has tremendous negative effects on a young man growing up. The fact that, I've seen this, in school growing up myself, telling this to children, it's absolutely insane. And so for this guy, in this case, he got an exposure to something that was more traditional than what he was in. And he ended up falling in love and marrying a traditional girl, a more traditionally minded girl than the woman he was around. And she just happens to be effective, super African. So wow. That's what I mean by like, it's not and of course he had to make new friends after that. Cause if you go that far out of you're not exactly going to be accepted by the other, white nationalist types at that point.
I want to hit a few comments because people are wanting to share some of their opinions on the topic. Shout out to Jonathan Newby. He's a member of the Logos Academy. He says, hashtag School Academy crew, Lord have mercy on the Kirk family. Thank you, brother, for doing this stream. We support and love you. This is sad. Well, thank you very much, Jonathan Newby. God bless you, brother, and the family. H. Brossi said, husband, father, patriot, regardless of what political or theological differences we had with him, he was a conduit for getting youth to our side. Fact. Andrew, thanks for the $5. He says, I'm studying the French Revolution for my junior thesis. People have no idea how fast things can escalate and how unthinkable things can become. Yeah, absolutely. You guys have a comment regarding the French Revolution and what we're seeing in America right now?
I do. I mean, the funding wise, the French revolutionaries, where things escalated super quick, they were funded by the Duke of Orleans, or Orleans, however they say it in French. That's all these revolutionary movements, they always have an oligarch backing. Any uprising that doesn't have any kind of oligarchic support fails immediately. Like an example would be like the Peasant Rebellion during the time of Luther. If you don't have like institutional support, they cannot take off. And that's the thing with BLM. That's the thing with leftism. These are things that are institutionally supported.
Right. Great point.
People, yeah.
Total AstroTurf too, because their big thing that thou just protest too much, that it's organic. It's just the people. What a progressive kind of idea. We're just waking up. We're progressing. It's almost this kind of Hegelianism, right?
Yeah.
Right. That we just realize what's the right side of history, evolutionary consciousness, where the people are kind of waking up and progressing and seeing it's like, it's all manufactured. The whole 60s revolution, right?
Yeah. That was all manufactured. That was
Timothy Leary is like, I give full credit to the CIA.
Yeah. Well, he said when you do things like he was doing, you have to choose teams like the Red Sox or the Yankees, and he just chose the CIA.
It's so funny because all the hippie boomers thought they were rocking out against the establishment. It's like, it is you are the establishment. Like a lot of the musicians, the whole psychedelic movement, the civil rights, all that. It's like, it's all establishment. So, which is interesting that eventually, I was thinking about this too, that your average kind of Democrat that, you know, in the 60s, kind of boomer would be establishment.
Right.
You know, like, aren't they? They're like the pro-corporation, pro-establishment, pro-war.
Right.
So in some sense, it kind of like, that's the kind of logical outplay. Now, there's no self-awareness that they realize. They probably still think that they're raging against the machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
COVID, Pride Month, like whatever the thing is, right? The meme is like, what am I upset about now? And you said that even with the stabbing. I mean, the shooting it was everywhere, all over media, X, but like you're saying, the stabbing wasn't anywhere.
No, I mean, well, even when I covered it last night, Pam Bondi, the Trump administration didn't make a comment on it until Tuesday. So again, it was because of that X wouldn't let it die for basically 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Pam Bondi was forced to actually make a public announcement that they're going to use DOJ resources to, you know, investigate or whatever they're going to try to do. But I mean, nobody. I think Vance maybe made a comment about it on Monday about senseless crime in America. But yeah, there wasn't. I mean, the whole arena thing was because X wouldn't drop it. And for us, it was just like it was kind of a tipping point in regards to the commentary online that we're just tired of all these, you know, tragedies and all these crimes that fit a typical pattern that keep emerging.
Well, that's a shocker. I was surprised that mainstream media is now actually covering crime statistics. Like, I was like, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, that was Sunday. Fox News did a special where they actually.
I'm like, wow, that's.
Well, and how often, like FDA, you were saying earlier, sorry, Father, with the radicalization, this just puts Charlie Kirk on blast. You know what I mean? Like, he's now a full-blown martyr. All of his work,
definitely a political martyr.
They made it work. You know what I mean? Like, if they're like,
they
okay,
always make it worse for themselves.
Let's shut this guy up.
Quit hitting yourself.
Yeah. And yeah, that's honestly, you know, like, and there's some like white nationalists and stuff here. It's funny, actually. There was a Mexican white nationalist and again, it's funny because when I chat with them, I understand the appeal. Like, I'm white. I get it. But once you're Orthodox and you realize like that game doesn't work because it's another dichotomy, they're like, well, okay, I grew up, they put me in this box. I'm going to play the exact same game in this box. And it's like, no, when you're Orthodox, you transcend that. There is no Greek. There is no Jew. We're united in Christ. This is all downstream. The royal path is above the dichotomy. Because like abortion, I get that. I had that all the time where they're like, oh, we have the pro-life people who say it's never wrong. And then we have the pro-choice people who are like, well, it's always right. I'm a moderate. I'm in the middle. I think you can sometimes kill babies. I'm like, you don't understand as an Orthodox, it's all murder.
Right.
Right. And that's the other thing is they are the ones that are always so empathetic and they're so compassionate. They don't understand Christianity at all. You see that. So,
well, they're not empathetic. Patrick, we've gone over this too, like the dark triad traits. Remember, we did the article from the psychologist university.
People, shocking amount of millennials and younger don't have internal monologues.
Yeah. Now the thing is, it's really interesting because I don't understand why people are so dumb and naive. Like, well, don't you believe in the liberals and the Democrats? I mean, their sympathy and empathy for other people. It's like, no, it's all fake. I mean, the fact that all y'all flying Ukrainian flags in your bio had nothing to say when this poor Ukrainian refugee got murdered. That tells all. I'm like, they don't care. The fact that they're pushing Skittles, love is love, they don't love them. These are narcissistic Machiavellian sociopaths, right? That hide behind this flowery language of compassion. You're so mean, Jay Dyer. FDA is so mean. That's not Christian. Would
Christ you see Tucker torch Cuban?
Weapon? What's that?
Yeah. Do you see Tucker torch Cuban about, Cuban's like, oh yeah, we should be sending money to Ukraine. And Tucker, he's like, I'm Ukrainian. Tucker's like, oh, how much money have you sent?
Yeah.
None? No. You're a billionaire, dude. Like, put your money where your mouth is.
Right. Yeah. BLA, welcome, brother.
What's up, brother?
Hey, y'all. How's it going? It's pretty Pretty rough day, huh?
Yeah. It's been an
Yeah.
interesting time in America. I want to give you space. We've been, anything where you want to go regarding what's unfolded today, the state of America, your thoughts on anything, feel free.
Well, I will say that we've in the last 5 years, they've been pretty heavy. We've really hyper accelerated everything. And I would say, I mean, the spirit of chaos and destruction is sort of rampant. And I think one of the things that results out of an act like this is obviously chaos and confusion. I don't know if any of us are confused. I don't think anybody watching this is confused, but it does engender a sense of confusion in the wider public. And, I've got the Boomer News on the background to see if they, what the
They find
up-to-date,
anybody.
what the up-to-date stuff is, yeah. But, that's another interesting thing is that these things happen so quickly that, and this really ramped up in 2020, that these things happen so quickly that the traditional news cycle, of course, is far behind where we are in the world right now. And I was sort of ruminating on this. And obviously I'm sure you guys have discussed the fact that the big 9 is tomorrow, we're in that sort of mass casualty sort of season here, unfortunately. And I think that I don't know what to say about this other than that it was really grotesque. It was really sick and grotesque. And the symbolism of the act, not to get too esoteric, I guess, into it, but that's sort of what we do. And I think that's part of the act itself is that obviously plays a role in this, in the spectacle of the thing.
Right.
And I think it really was horrifying. I have to say that when I first saw the thing, I think probably like a lot of people were sort of numb to events initially in terms of the continuous cycle of it. And then, give it a couple minutes or whatever, and it really starts to weigh heavily on the soul that, I mean, like a lot of people here, and I'm not going to speak ill of the dead. I don't really have any ill to speak. I was not, a fan of Charlie Kirk while he was alive. That's a moot point now. This is absolutely it's really a vampirical. Somebody wrote me today and said that, they were looking at it and they were saying it's almost vampirical, the sense that we see this poor Ukrainian girl on the bus or whatever, get it in the neck. And then we see this today. And that does sort of lend itself to the fact that the whatever the system is feeding on people, and certainly feeding fears. And not to mention the fact that I think there's a danger with this sort of thing that, like with Big 9, 24 years ago, there's the never forget phrase, but people do, especially younger people, tend to forget that it was a real event, that there was something that occurred and that people lost their life. And it's absolutely diabolical that it happened. And this is a sort of continuation of this, where we see this one figure who has his voice and his life taken away on a stage in front of people and on the world stage.
Yeah. And doing moderate conservative debates that are very reasonable. He's not trolling people. He's very respective. You watch these videos, like the clips that go viral, some leftists will be crazy, but the whole brand of it is how Charlie Kirk sets his mic down, lets the person speak until they're done, and then he'll ask a question. And that's what he was doing. The commentary that was happening when he was shot was on trans violence. And he was talking about how it's a problem in America, and then asked the person to provide examples, set the mic down, and that's when he was sniped through the throat.
Right. Well, all I have to offer really are two. I try to, I tend to look at things through some sort of literary lens. I mean, that's. I think it's important to look at things in parallel. And first, I started thinking about political assassinations involving the neck, and obviously there's the famous one with JFK, literally grasping at his neck in the back of the limo, and then Benazir Bhutto, I think, was assassinated through the neck. And this is a sort of very real, hyper real thing that takes place, where we see blood pouring out of the neck and a person collapse in it's diabolical. It's really sickening. It brings the kind of hatred of goodness and life, full on display for everyone to see in a world where I don't think that we're supposed to see things like this all the time. Certainly, we are not supposed to live in a world where we see everything all the time. All of us have kind of talked about that. I think that I was thinking about how this is like the culmination of something that began in Vietnam, which is like where you get the war broadcast on the television, which was supposed to show that these are events that are occurring and this is the way that we're fighting. And then it ended up, with like parents seeing their kids on TV, their children on TV fighting. And that it ended up in this reverse thing where now everything is sort of communicated or televised or in the media. And yet there is this reverse effect where we are so shut off from reality that it really, I don't know, it leads to some sort of spiritual darkness, purposefully so. And the other thing I thought about was that this seems very far-fetched to people, but I was reading this literary theorist, Susan Sontag, and I just covered her, and I was looking into what she says about this French theatrical theorist. This seems really far off, and it's not in bad taste. But the French theorist Antonin Artaud is a kind of culmination. He sort of represents what came to be postmodernism in the world, and through the lens of art, and then eventually into politics and the sort of hyper real. And his theories about art were essentially that the theater it wasn't that there would be no difference between the audience and the theater. It was that the world would be the theater, not in the Shakespearean all the world's a stage way, but that the Artaud believed that the spirit of nihilism and a kind of post-industrial negativity would result in the fact that people only believe really in violence. The violent spectacle would overtake any other feelings of virtue or goodness, and that would be the thing that magnetizes people to existence itself. And that seems like a really far line away from this, but this did take place on a stage. It's already on a stage. We're watching it like it's some sort of theatrical event. It becomes almost highly stylized watching it. And then we see him on a stage, almost on a dais, and it's for everyone to see. And it's in a shot in the neck, taking his voice away and taking his life.
Live
so
streamed, it was
live streamed. So these sorts of events, I think, are much worse than we sort of remember, and that we sort of give them credit for, because the other thing that happens is we get more and more desensitized to the individuals every day. I'm not saying us, but people at large. And I think that it's important, again, like C.S. Lewis says in The Last Battle, that it's very easy for us to feel like it's, we don't want to get taken in. And so it's almost impossible to take us out of things. So we have to remember humanity, and that, we are supposed to have virtue and faith and goodness and sympathy for people. And this sort of thing was just, this is fucking mayhem. It's just gross. Right. So that's what
I'm trying to catch up on some of the comments that people had. And then I got a couple more questions for you guys just to get your opinion. So let's run through these real quick. H. Brossi throws in $20. Thank you so much, brother. He says, disheartening to say the least. Absolutely. Geob has a comment for everybody. Coincidentally, near 9/11, BLA just made that point. Patriot Act type policies incoming. Kirk will be a sacrificial lamb for justifying Palantir 1984 tech mass surveillance on us. Anybody have a comment on that? Or I could certainly see that.
Well, certainly for something involving guns, it seems like this would be the perfect opportunity for.
Especially if we find out, like I've seen speculation online that it had to do with his rhetoric about Islam, and that Islam shouldn't exist in America. That some people think that it's a Muslim guy. Some people think that it's a leftist. Some people think maybe it's intelligence of one nation or another. So we don't know. But if it was a Muslim, I could easily see this being used as a counter-terrorist measure, similar to 9/11.
The thing to keep in mind is, what do you call it? So criminality in among a population is symptomatic of the elite, because the fact is a ruling class that's competent can suppress crime very effectively. Like if you look at Lee Kuan Yew on the small scale, or you look at him, his the guy that he respected the most, who was up and coming when he was an old man, like Xi Jinping. You really, like, what do you call it? Like, you can actually just do things. And that's the thing to take into account. So like the ruling class really can shut down crime. Like you look at the case with Trump occupying, with Washington, D.C., what he did recently, or what he's trying to do with Chicago. The reason why Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit were, violent hellholes, Washington, D.C. as well, is because that's what the leadership class wanted. And that's something I find to be very fascinating in that regard. It's, what do you call it? I mean, evil leadership just produces, and evil leadership doesn't go out of, it's not going to protect any of the local population they rule from the evil, because they tend to protect those who are doing the evil. And that's something you'll see, like in the case, like whether you look at BLM, or you look at all these NGOs which are pushing for reducing sentences, reducing what do you call it? Being kind, or being gentler with repeat offenders.
Remember when they let them out during COVID? They were just
yeah. It's crazy. And that's the thing to take into account. Like how a society is very much a reflection of the ruling class who control it. And that's the thing about here. So like in the case of, like you meant, so going back to this with the Patriot Act, for example, so the Patriot Act made legal that which was already being done. Huge influence on me growing up. One of my best friends growing up, his grandfather was actually he was using like for programmers in the crowd. He used query languages that were pre-SQL for working with databases that they have up in Utah for and Nebraska, I think, as well. And even down here in Texas for the NSA. And like their goal was what the Patriot Act made legal in public. They were working on building that back in the 60s. So it's, these are plans within plans. And so in terms of, if there is a surveillance thing that gets passed, publicly, where certain types of surveillance, whether it be using AI or what have you, made legal, then all you need to just know that they've already been using it. They're just publicly making legal what they're already doing.
Right.
Well,
go ahead.
A little 2 cents. I wish I could have my Jordan Peterson accent. What are you going to do with evil, bucko? Like all of society, when it becomes removed from Christianity and specifically Christ, all it is violence becomes the main stage, right? Like as us, we're going to church every Sunday. There's violence, but it's turned upside down with the passion. And so all of society becomes this rage baiting violence force. Like all of our media nowadays, like when's the last time you've watched media and you've seen something like heartwarming? It's because our whole society has removed God. And that's what Peterson ultimately, one of his things was always like, okay, you can say God doesn't exist, but most people will admit that evil or bad exists. So now what do you do? And I think what's interesting about all the quote unquote coincidences that happens, I mean, that's what the evil one does, right? He just mocks God, where we say, look at all these divine providence where these things line up perfectly. The devil does the exact same thing. So whether it's not having these 2 major deaths in the same week, right, coming from the neck, it's like the devil's just mocking God. So
yeah, absolutely. Keenan Beats throws in $2, says this one makes me sick, man. Yeah, when I had a visceral reaction in my gut too after learning it was real. Like I said at BLA, I mentioned this before. It's like no matter what our disagreements were with Charlie Kirk, because of his moderate stances, I mean, that could have been anybody who makes any right of center commentary on politics today. And that's what I think that why it kind of shakes people up is that anybody who creates content or puts out your opinion online, and I don't even have a big channel, but I get, emails from people that are, and you dismiss it because you're like, this is a wacko. But, I mean, my God, I think the symbolic takeaway for many people is like, wow, that could have been anybody. Absolutely anybody.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we know some people that are quite big, and it really is. It's I don't know what to say about it. I think it was pretty harsh. Broad daylight, at a college campus and all that. I mean, I guess the college campus is sort of the stage for this sort of thing, but I don't know. I don't know, man.
Dave, been a COTEL crew member for 3 months, says this feels like a turning point in America. No pun on Turning Point USA. And I wanted to get to this one because I'm curious if you guys have any specific or nuanced thoughts on where this goes. Because as I said, I'm kind of lost. I do feel it's a turning point. I do feel it's going to radicalize more and more people. I mean, just even recently, I mentioned this last night, within the last few months, just talking with normie conservative people, because of social media, they're getting fed all this stuff regarding crime and the attack on white people. Like, I've talked with some really normie people that aren't super political, and their opinions and even the things they say now are a little bit sharper than they used to be. So definitely it's a turning point regarding some type of undergirding revolutionary spirit that's present in the entire Western civilization right now. But do you guys have any thoughts what the turning point is, or are you willing to speculate about where this is going to go?
I thought 2020 was already the turning point,
Yeah.
This seems to be just both the fallout and the ramp up from that. I mean, the whole world set on fire. And I think you guys brought up, I caught a little bit earlier, and you guys mentioned the 60s. Father Deacon said, wisely, that this in the 60s. It's not like the 60s. We're coming out of the war, and they saw assassinations constantly all the time. Those were also. It is weird when you have an internet guy, a guy that does live streams, an internet guy who's now at the forefront of all this stuff, and that seems to be this sort of hyper reality that we're in, where I guess anybody can get it anytime, with this stuff, and it's I don't know what to say about it other than that it's diabolical. I was before this happened, before I learned about this today, I picked up randomly an old copy that my dad had sent me of American Pravda Mossad assassinations from 2020. And I was reading Victor Ostrovsky and reading about assassinations. And one of the things that Ostrovsky talks about is that the whoever's, there's a difference between high tier political targets and general populations as far as the 60s through the 80s, in terms of like the way that intelligence, I guess, delineates these things. But then when it came to certain groups and political targets, especially with The Voice, they entered the same tier. And so we definitely see that with this sort of thing. But hey,
by the way,
crazy world.
Time to return back to this book.
Yeah, right? Program to Kill. Yeah.
Well, and I don't, want to draw Charlie, how should I say that, too much congruence to something like the martyrdom of the royal family. And it is weird now that we're in 2025, that it's all much more apparent. We have much more data. So whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, because I try to explain that to people that aren't Orthodox. I'm like, people, why are you Orthodox? And I'm like, you go through history. And I think for a lot of people looking at early Russian history and what happened in Russia during the Bolshevik Revolution, really starts to open your eyes towards the current agenda that's happening here. And at the same time, I'm like, okay, can you imagine if a radical leftist group went into the White House, had Trump, say, I'm not president anymore, took his family out, ran him around the country, and then one random night butchered him in the basement and all of his family members? Like, we're not there. I don't know if we would get there. Like, would we go into straight civil war before that? But, they tried this on Trump not too long ago. I mean, it was, we got by, by the little bit of the ear. And I don't know how to say this optimistically. It's like, I don't want to say that I'm not surprised, but like, they tried for Trump. Now they got like, what's next? At how many, is there going to be another attempt? Like, what do we watch out for? And at what point it's like, what is the intervention? Because there's going to be more and more people who want to use physical arms. I think I saw that in a super chat. It's like, at what point do you take the military and round up whatever group? And how long do people, like the first group, the first chat, it said, like, we have been like on this pinpoint for a while. COVID really exposed that. I think, glory to God, you know, I'm biased. I think the right has a little bit more of a cool head than the left. Like, again, imagine if this had happened to a leftist. Like, bro, oh man, they'd be torching the streets right now.
Like, Hassan Abi, I mean, isn't he like one of the biggest left political commentators? So, yeah, so you know, it definitely feels like it's I would agree overall in regards to culture with BLA that 2020 was the turning point.
Yep.
But this feels like a catalyst for people that maybe were brought towards the center after 2020 and pushing people over to the right. It just feels like something's going to change.
And by turning point, no turning back. Like, it doesn't seem, you know, prior to 2020, it was like, oh, we could have civil discourse and dialogue and, you know, somewhat. I think it was getting heightened, you know, the rhetoric and stuff during, you know, 2016 and stuff like that. But the coup really made it apparent, even in our own church, that this whole, you can have dialogue with these people. It was an apocalypse. It was, in the Greek sense of the term, a revealing that they're fundamentally a different ideology, that like there's no reasoning. And part of that's kind of laid out in the postmodern kind of tenets and stuff like that. And even before postmodernism too, in terms of, I would even say kind of Marxist material dialectics, that the embracing of kind of contradiction in the material instantiation so that leads to the negation of into the next kind of phase and stuff like this.
It's a fracturing of their psyche.
That's why are you know, these groups don't care about logical consistency.
No.
Logic is white supremacism and colonism, right? It's the colonizers, right? Like, so you can't use reason and argument. They don't care about, it's just libido dominandi. It's power. It's, you know, material dialectical, you know, methodology and heuristics. And so it's like, what do you do with something like that? Now, of course, we invite all into the church to be healed. And on a rare occasion, I have seen that happen with somebody who's on the left or liberals and stuff like that. But it's harder.
Yeah.
It's hard. It takes a lot of time. Why? Because they already have a mindset that the church is the problem.
Right.
And it's like,
I need to be changed. It needs to progress, or
it needs to change.
Really, I really love the aesthetics, but we needed, you know, we need women, you know, deaconesses. We need to, you know, modernize. And I think Jose mentioned it earlier. It's the people that have ideology over orthodoxy.
Yes,
absolutely. And orthodoxy.
I went to the conference this past weekend, and one of the things that was brought up was that that Christianity really thrives in oppression, and that's when it becomes greatest. And I think that the opposing force to that is that oppression is the sort of language of the degenerate, degraded demon people. That the more, I mean, look at the reactions.
Oh, I know.
It's almost like, you know, the literal spewing violence of blood coming out of the neck is a kind of new baptism for people who see that you know, oh, this is, they're saying this is, you know, what you get when you think a certain way, and that or when you talk, you know, or when you oppose the kind of system that creates an ideology that replaces religion. If everything is about identity and ideology and it leaves no room for faith, then one seems to only have faith in the spirit of violence and what someone can do to another human being, physically or psychically, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah. And then
do you know what
they
sorry. Well,
I was
you
just
know,
going to say, look at
especially
them rinse and repeating the different agendas, right? Whether it was race or whether it's, you know, the feminism or whether it's, there's just always a new agenda, transgender, gay, like they're just, and it's like they find the weak point. Oh, this isn't working. Let's move over here, right?
Yeah.
And they're using that that ideology to control the playing field, like Father Deacon was saying. And then once they get us stuck in there, we play their game. And that's ultimately the issue. It's like, how long do we play their game? Then you get into how deep does the deep state run? How much of this, the polemics is controlled? Was this guy MK Ultra? Was he just a boomer crazy person that like, I don't like Charlie Kirk, so I'm going to assassinate him?
Or a Muslim.
Yeah.
You know, according, so I was trying to catch the latest. The FBI apparently has the weapon. And there's rumors online that they have the guy in custody, but Kash Patel has said that they don't have him, that it's still under investigation.
Oh, is that true? I thought he said, I saw it like
I thought they had a friend of the suspect.
They had a boomer.
The killer, but they had a friend in custody, but not the actual killer yet. But they do have the rifle, which again looked like a 308, which is what I thought as well.
Well, and I got a question for you guys. Like, you know, a week ago, people were called, like, at what point, and maybe I'm wrong. Again, I'm a little biased towards the right side. I don't really feel like I see anyone on the right, at least on the mainstream, being super aggressive, like calling for violence. Am I biased? Do I see that more on the left where people are like, this guy's a NAZI, he needs to be taken out, right? This happened before Trump got shot at. Like the left was currently like throwing stuff. And then you get on media now and Elizabeth Warren and Barack Obama are saying, oh, I'm so sad for him. It's like, really? I'm pretty sure you were ripping on him and calling him the devil, worse than the devil, because calling him, you know, an NAZI is worse than being a Satanist nowadays, right? Honestly, if you want to insult someone, you don't call him a Satanist, you call him an NAZI.
Yeah. Well, and to Rachel's point, she said that Andrew's parents called him today, terrified because they feel like that could have been him, which absolutely. And, you know, we all love Andrew and the Wilsons, but, you know, his style isn't Charlie Kirk's style. And you could easily see him, you know, instigating these crazy people and the rhetoric around Andrew and some of the stuff that you see online. So, like I said, it could have been anybody. I mean,
yeah, you know what? I don't even get into politics unless I'm just doing kind of political philosophy, the history of political philosophy or something like that, kind of analysis. I got a death threat letter. I had to make a police report. I had to like turn it into my school, and I'm like, there's whack. And I'm like, it was probably nothing, but you never know. Like it could be any of us.
Yeah.
Like you said,
the worst I got, somebody sent me my address. They didn't directly say they're going to kill me, but they said they're going to harm me. I did not turn into police, and nothing came of it. The person stopped messaging me, but they were on like a tear for like 7 days, like constantly emailing me. And then they emailed my address, which I found very creepy.
There's nutsos, and it's like Patrick, you've probably I've gotten some crazy weird emails before.
Yes.
That one I was like, all right, actually, this is a bit serious. I probably have to go in case something happens, just make a report. But like, you know, like totally unhinged people, probably a tranny on SSRIs. And like, they just, especially if you're public, like that's the face, like that's the person that's my enemy and I have to kill him.
Right. And they look at you as an archetype. So they're not even killing Charlie Kirk. They're killing, moderate Protestant Christian conservatism. And that's what I feel like they think they're seeing. But thank you very much, Mela. She gifted 5 COTEL Crew memberships. God bless you. Jack the Guitar God throws in 5, says, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Thank you very much, Jack, for the support. God bless you, brother. Melly sends in 20, says, we need to be courageous in the face of evil, especially now. They want to silence us. And
yeah, let me talk about forgiveness real quick, because people, I talked about this, the St. Paisius Brotherhood, and then also when Father Turbo and I did our workshop together. People misunderstand forgiveness. I think it's more about like the person. Your forgiveness does very little to the person. Forgiveness is not forgetfulness either. just sweep it under the rug. Nothing ever happened. Forgiveness, as Father Russell says, is a release from the captivity of the memory of the past. So we forgive our enemies and those who hate us. That doesn't mean you put a killer in your home.
Right.
Well, just come on in. You
Or,
know,
or let
somebody
him out, cash free bail.
Somebody, let's say, on a
arrested.
drunken binge is the treasurer of your parish council, and they wipe out the bank account going to the casino, and you say, I forgive you. What that doesn't mean is because you forgive them, you put them back into, well, here's the church credit card for the
right.
And that's what people think. So there are legal consequences. There are duties as a citizen, right? Like as a Christian, you can forgive, right? Turning the other cheek doesn't mean enabling either. And this is something that's totally always misunderstood in terms of Christianity. In ethics, it's called ethical monism. Now, as Orthodox, we're ethical pluralists. That doesn't mean relativists. But what that means is ethical rules are not absolute. So that means how they're applied, where and which way, is not everywhere at the same place in the same stringency in the same degree. And you notice this like within Protestantism, right? Well, it says this in the Bible, so it's just this kind of absolute. It's like, no, actually, there's nuance to moral commands, right? For example, Roman Catholics and Protestants do the same thing. I call it in logic the fallacy of accident. You should always return property to its rightful owner, right, that you borrowed it from. That's a moral principle that we'd all say yes. Now, use some type of Kantian and be like, in every single situation, I'm an absolutist and ethical monist. Well, okay, suppose you borrow your neighbor's hunting rifle and they've been up on meth for the last week and they've got their children and wife tied up and says they're going to kill them. And everybody in the neighborhood, oh, and by the way, they want their rifle that you borrowed back. Well, Bible says moral rules say, I mean, how stupid is this? So, when it says call no man fool, is that an absolute? No. When it says turn the other cheek, does that mean the same thing everywhere at all times at the same street? Like, no. And so in light of this, we're called to forgive. That's what forgiveness is. But it doesn't mean that a citizen, even as an Orthodox Christian, doesn't speak up, doesn't take an active role, even in local politics, to make sure there's laws. Who said it, by the way? I love this line. I mean, we're at this point, right, where I think it's Oscar Benavides. For my friends, everything. For my enemies, the law. How true is that right now?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Amen.
That's not unchristian. Just not unchristian at all.
Melly throws in another 5, says they have zero peace. Absolutely. And I just tagged another one of these in the chat. Charlie Kirk is in hell for not being Roman Catholic. Like, really, guys? We just talked about this.
It makes you wonder.
Yeah, maybe it's a troll account or something, but
that's one thing, I don't.
So he's in hell for not joining a gay Skittles church, right? I mean, how absurd! You didn't join the gay cult,
even if
so
that
you're
was
burning
your
hell.
sentiment,
That's your argument?
Yeah, even if that's your sentiment, to say it like today, you can't just take a break today. Yep. Like, my God, the guy had 2 kids. They were young. He was so excited. I mean, he was super pro family, like whatever differences we had. He was super pro like Protestant Christianity and family. And like, come on, dude.
Are they going to blame South Park?
Yeah,
because that was the first episode of the new season was the Charlie Kirk episode. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, I did.
No.
Yeah. Cartman was Charlie Kirk on a college campus. Yeah.
Like
I got to sign off though.
All right. Later,
Thanks
Dr.
for having
Mel.
me, guys. Everyone
Yep.
pray for me. Good seeing you, BLA and Jose.
See you, buddy.
Good to see you.
All right. Later, brother.
Hey, Michael.
Oh,
Melly throws another 10, says, during the George Floyd thing, I was out somewhere with my hubby, and at the end of the night, I almost was jumped by a mob just for being a fair female. That woke me up. Yeah, I think that would wake you up. And that type of stuff is happening all over the place. Go ahead, Jose.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, Melly, one thing I understand is, like, again, like, just like how this guy was schizophrenic, in the case of mob mentality, it's just what's the word I'm looking for? Like a shooting gallery for, unclean spirits and demons to throw, darts into people's minds to do stuff they otherwise wouldn't do. And the thing to take into account is the demonic does hate beauty, because beauty is an energy of God. And objectively speaking, women receive a whole lot more of that physically than men do. Like, even your plain average woman who's healthy, well, she's still going to be physically more appealing to look at than, a good looking guy.
Yeah.
So it's just like, men and women both agree on this. It's so it's just something to consider. And that's why, men are supposed to protect their women. And that was one of the failings with the Ukrainian girl. The fact that her male family members would, essentially allow.
No. If they're here, I never found out whether the rest of her family was here.
She has an uncle who's here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's what I'm like, why would you, I'll be frank, so, I mean, I've been, back when I was newlywed, I was poor and everything. And my wife and I, we would use public transportation, but my wife was always with me. I was not going to have my wife go somewhere alone, without me in a place where, it's prone to, violent behavior or violent crime, etc. And as a rule, these people also, they have a tendency to go for the weakest targets that are available. And, like in this case, for example, this girl, she's completely unprotected and she was targeted because it's a, essentially crime of opportunity for the demonic.
Right.
And then compare that to my wife's experience where, she wasn't targeted by anything because, who was right next to her. Her husband was weighs more than 215 pounds lean, and it could potentially be armed because it's Texas. It's men have a duty to look out for their women folk. And that's something that America, unfortunately, in the feminist push has completely abandoned. And I wanted to go a step back too about the question about is this the turning point, or when is the turning point? Like, if one means when is the turning point where things actually turn into a civil war? So if you look at the American Civil War, or you look at the 20 civil wars in Colombia or the English Civil War, civil wars kick off when a couple things that have to happen. But one of the necessary conditions is oligarchs start forming their own networks that are independent of one another. So you end up having separate parties of the people who actually decide what happens in the nation. And the second part after that is there's not enough wealth or pie or whatever it is to keep all those oligarch families in the same position of comfort, wealth, and power that they have. And then three, the oligarch families essentially conclude the only way that they can maintain what they have is through violent force. And that's when you get the civil wars kicking off. And so just to give us an example, so things like the ruling class of the United States, they all go to the same parties, they go to the same clubs, etc. And I was just going to give it as an example. I don't need to particularly pick out these two families, but I find that this is an example what I'd use as a bellwether to tell me, all right, this is the turning point where things get violent. So the most successful trading company of all time is a company called Renaissance Tech. So I learned about them because, they're a bunch of mathematicians and quants, physicists who essentially trade stocks, and they intentionally hire people who have zero financial education whatsoever. They only want mathematicians, physicists, etc. And they would always recruit people from my university back when I was in school. So that company was founded by a guy named Jim Simmons. He's passed away, but the Simmons family is super wealthy. And Simmons is actually the number 5 donor. The Simmons family are the number 5 donor to the Democratic Party. So this is a very powerful family that made a bunch of money through Renaissance Tech. The other family that made a bunch of money through Renaissance Tech was the Mercer family. So Robert Mercer being the, for lack of a better term, the godfather of the whole Mercer clan. So he's not dead, but he's retired and he's essentially stepped back. And because he only had daughters, one of his daughters, I think it's Rebecca, who's taken over managing what the family's doing with their fortune. And they were huge in funding a lot of stuff on the right. And so before people ask, how right-wing were the Mercers? So I know Robert Mercer, he was a man who was saying that the Civil Rights Act was a mistake since the 60s, consistently. So there are many things there. I think your average young, base guy, I'll just say that guy was based on a lot of things before you were ever born. But he tends to be usually the number one in pushing. I know it wasn't just Peter Thiel who pushed J.D. Vance. So Mercer also had a hand in selecting him. And he also funded, for example, Breitbart News. The Mercer family, for example, is the funding. They are the funding behind Tucker Carlson. That's why Tucker Carlson is doing what he's doing. So these two families, the Mercer families and the Simons families, they're both fantastically wealthy. They both are functionally, what do you call it? They are ruling, like they are genuine ruling class in the United States. And they both made their money for decades together and effectively in bed together in terms of business. And when it comes to business partnerships, they are in many ways closer than a marital relationship, or at least your average marital relationship in the United States. But that's because, as my spiritual father put it, 90% of Americans who are married do not have a healthy marriage. So the question is, for me, a bellwether would be, if these two families that even to this day still make money, even though they're already coming apart politically, and they're forming their own various two separate factions. When these families, and not just these two specifically, but these families in general, when I start seeing them, not like executions like what we're seeing with, or assassinations like we're seeing with Kirk, but when I see that these families start going after each other's children, that's when you know you're on a civil war is about to kick off. Like, that is the turning point that I'm personally looking out for.
Yeah, absolutely. Continuing forward here.
Subject interrogated and released, according to the Boomer News update.
GT Verino throws in 5, says, did anyone see the people online celebrating Mr. Kirk's passing? Yes, I did. It's interesting how the left is anti-pew-pew unless it's used to martyr Christians. And I'm not going to share it, but I told you guys earlier about the local live stream that I tuned into. I was looking at the live chat, and I'll just read a few to you guys. It says, stop taking up for a man that would have celebrated if this happened to you or your people. Shaking my head. I miss Charlie Kirk. He just trusted guns a little too much. Laughy face, laughy face, laughy face. And it's just a bunch of people saying Charlie Kirk and then having laughy face emojis. It's it's pretty pathetic. Then the same gentleman threw in another 5 and says, I'm a Catholic, so I do not support the crazy Catholics in the chat. Just putting that out there. Also, great show, new subscriber. Well, thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Good for you.
Erebus throws in 2, says Charlie is a martyr now as a result. Correct. Well, not a martyr in the Orthodox Church, but certainly a martyr regarding American political,
in the colloquial sense.
Yeah, in the colloquial cultural sense, for sure. Melly throws in another 5, says after this, Fuentes should probably think twice about publicly speaking. Yeah, I would imagine so. I would absolutely imagine so. Dog Meat throws in 2, says, all you, please be careful. This is scary. Melly throws in 5, says some Hispanics are very anti-black, anti-Hispanic, believe it or not. I do believe that. I've met a couple. And JB throws in 10, says the French have long had a penchant for social deconstruction and political violence. It isn't surprising that their PDF file philosophers became so popular over here. This was during BLA talking about postmodernism and stuff.
Quick comment.
Did you see? Mm-hmm. Speaking of philosophers, did you see? Was it the Cal State? Not Santa Cruz, but this philosophy professor. What was the city? Not Oxnard. Camarillo. Anyways, he got arrested. So remember when the ICE raided that? It was like I think it was a marijuana farm, and it had all this like child labor. And there was like these memes going around of Gavin Newsom's like, he looks like a white Southern plantation owner. He's like, these weeds aren't going to pick themselves. But he's there, and he threw a bottle and assaulted some of the officers. And
I did see that. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I can't remember what Cal State, but was it I don't think, is it Camarillo have? I forget. Cal State Santa Clara. I can't remember. You could look it up, but can you believe that?
Mm-mm.
Yes and no, right?
Right.
But he looks exactly how you'd expect.
Yeah, I do remember seeing the photo of him. It was kind of spitting image of what you would imagine. Fellow parishioner at my parish, Brother Charles throws in 10, says, in my very humble opinion, we are scarily close to the conditions that produced the French Revolution, politically, economically, and spiritually. Yeah, I would second that opinion. I assume everybody on the panel probably seconds that opinion.
To add to Charles, because it relates to the previous super chat too, familially as well. Before the French Revolution, you had a sexual revolution within 18th century France. And that's something that's very fundamental. Like when the family unit is attacked that way, so, or rather, when a population adopts sexual revolution, they completely abandon marriage and family life. They no longer care about the generations that follow. It's solely about my own pleasure, me, myself, and I. And it's at a essentially societal scale. And that's something too about, when you look at how things have operated over the last 60 years, one of the best predictors of what political decisions were going to get made by the powers that be is just assume they're going to take the position that gives the powers that be the most, what's the word I'm looking for, short-term benefit at the expense of future generations. And you see this even, in day-to-day family life. You can look at the divorce, like even though divorce rates have been coming down, that's mostly because people stop marrying.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even connect the sexual revolution part to contemporary America in regard to the French Revolution. That's a great point. JB throws another two, says, as empathetic as a battle axe. And he follows that up with, they used liberty as a cloak for vice, 1 Peter. GT Verino throws in 5, says, question, when is enough enough? Do we truly have to wait until they start rounding us up? Can we stop Christian persecution without violence? I think Father Deacon, and then we can comment. Do you have thoughts on that?
Was it not? Do we truly have to wait until they start rounding second? Well, like I said, I mean, just, when us priests and Father Turbo, we talk about orthodoxy transcending politics. A lot of people misunderstand that and be like, well, that means I'm not involved in politics at all.
Yeah, you're apolitical.
Like, first of all, you're not a monk, okay? So that's ridiculous. What we're talking about is ideologies and idols. Don't put that stuff first. The church comes first, your family comes first, and stuff like that. But I have always argued, yeah, you have a political and civil duty to engage in society and laws. The promotion, voting people in, the promotion of, virtue. Even if the people aren't virtuous, what was it? St. Paisius says, you vote for the person who, in a practical sense, is going to be best for Christians.
Right.
Yeah, I think Orthodox Christians do have a duty to engage politically. Just keep that down on a third, fourth thing, right? Don't let it be a distraction. And put first things first. That's what I've always. But yeah, you're not supposed to be a pacifist. Like we have Orthodox warrior saints, right? We pray for our military and stuff like that. There's no pacifism in Orthodox. Right, you do have some kind of like civil duties and stuff that I would argue. Just don't make that an idol. Right. That's all.
Gentlemen, you guys got thoughts on that?
I do. No, I have a different question, real quick. Are they going to catch this guy? I mean, I think that if this looks like a full on assassination. It doesn't seem like they're going to catch the guy. It looks like maybe they should be concentrating on who put the guy up to it or who funded it. I don't know how you go about doing that, but this isn't the same as the Trump situation. Right. with the MK Ultra patsy at the golf course, who was involved politically, I guess. But
Elon Musk posted an hour ago, if they won't leave us in peace, then our choice is to fight or die.
As a rule, be wary of what's the word I'm looking for? Finding yourself supporting oligarchs who've openly stated they want to replace you all with demon worshippers from a specific country that produces almost all the fecal matter that pollutes all 4 oceans. So that's the thing to take into account. It's how I get myself in trouble down here in Texas, and that. So I'll just say, I know there was a little bit of heat with the issue of the Civil War and slavery at the previous Ludwell conference, wasn't what the name of it, but but the thing is, like, my view on how the Civil War happened is so radically different than the northern or southern view of the Civil War, and I've got myself in trouble, opening my mouth about that. But fundamentally, it's as much as people like to, as much as people like to say, lost cause versus slavery and states' rights and everything else. Fundamentally, the ruling class elites of both of the South in particular were frankly very moronic. But that would have to be its own separate thing, and that's something to think about. Like who is trying to instigate you to do something? What is it they're trying to get you to do? And who is it? You have to ask yourself, who benefits?
That was one of the things, Jose, they brought up. Actually, another speaker at the conference brought that up, but in the framework of the American Revolution, which was that the complaint amongst many of the loyalists was that the American revolutionaries seemed to be playing towards moneyed interests in Europe, which they did not understand at the time. So that did sort of play into it in a kind of parallel framework. But I definitely see what you're saying.
Yeah. Melly throws in 5, says support for Bayes Lit Analyzer. Thank you so much, Melly. ID Bro throws in 10, says Lord have mercy, rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. Guy I know here in Indiana, McGuire Films throws in 10, said hope you're doing well, brother. God bless you as well. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you. Interesting name throws in 10. I now share my birthday with the unaliving of one of the leading conservative commentators of our time. Lord have mercy on him and his family. Amen. David Murdoch Art throws in 10, says Matthew 24:12. How do we know if our heart is cold? Where's the line between being cold and being a realist? This feels like a real danger. I'd hope to not grow cold. Well, I think that gets back to, Father Deacon's been mentioning it and hammering it over and over, but my thoughts would be it all has to do with allowing yourself to be a vessel and a temple for the Holy Spirit. If the Holy Spirit's present within you, you'll have discernment. And we just need to make sure we don't act irrationally or based on emotions. Melly throws in 10, says people need to stop being weak. Amen. Ertz Aaron throws in 20. Thank you so much, brother. He says, Virgil, do not give into evil, but proceed ever more boldly before it. Lord have mercy on Charlie and us all. Jay Hamza throws in a generous 20. He says, I'm reminded of William Tyndale, who was killed in the 16th century. This brings me to reflect how I'm living. As Christians, we should look inwardly. Not one of us knows when we will punch that ticket. Our lives are short. Amen. Wayward Frequency throws in 5, says, earlier today, there was a pew-pew event at Colorado High School, 3 students hospitalized, including the perp, no loss of life. Testicular Tactics throws in 2, said, shall we also pray for the perpetrators? Again, I will admit I have not prayed for the perpetrators. I did pray for the soul of Charlie Kirk after it was confirmed that he was dead, and his children and his wife and his parents. So I'm just not, my goal. I'm not a spiritual role model to anybody. So I'm personally not that in tune to consider the perpetrators yet and pray for their families. But yeah, it's something that we should all be called to. Andrew throws in another 2, says, I think look to the Old Testament on how God judges nations. Amen. Joaquin throws in 30 Mexican and it says, I think that all the things that are happening are symptoms of the absence of innate value in the life in the eyes of modern society. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that gets back to both Jose and Father Deacon talking about the left being a death cult. Yeah, they have no value for human life. JB throws another 5, says, legit got one, quote, moderate lefty suggests that logical fallacies are subjectively determined. And Rachel said, I had a leftist family member who I don't talk to much for obvious reasons text me to say that this is the risk Andrew and I are taking by being involved in right-wing politics. They're broken. Gorilla Biscuits throws in 5, no comment. Thank you, brother. Jason Unchained throws in 5, says, I appreciate this panel and thanks for creating a space for us all to discuss and reflect. Of course, that was the point. I mean, I actually had a Logos Academy meeting on women tonight, and it'd be hard to just talk about women with a group of men after everything that happened. So we're postponing that to next Wednesday, and I thought it was good. I reached out to these gentlemen to see if they wanted to kind of share their opinions tonight. Jordan throws in 20, says, to what DPH has been saying, as Gen X male being told we're hated, being taught we're condemned by sin we didn't commit, then seeing a charitable moderate person's assassination celebrated is straw breaking, to say the least. Yeah, I would imagine for many Gen Zers feel that way. And think of all the Gen Zers that were at the event. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the videos. It looked like there was like 100,000 people there. Probably not that much, but there was tons of people. It was at least thousands. GT throws another 5 and says, not sure if my question was answered, but how are we? Yeah, we already hit that. So thank you, GT. Really appreciate it. We just hadn't got to it yet. Mr. Sand throws in 10. I heard Charlie Kirk interview Father John Strickland on Charlie's podcast. They had a great conversation about the Orthodox Church. He was definitely a seeker of truth. Rest in peace, Charlie. And, you know, and I just wanted to play this one time because, and I know Rachel shared it, so I'm going to use her X account, but this was what Charlie Kirk said this week to Protestants and Christians about how they need to take more appreciation and venerate the Theotokos. I just want to play. It's real short. It's only 49 seconds, but you know, whatever we think, we had our disagreements with him, but he was trending in the right direction on most things. And this was just this past week. So I just want to share it real quick with you guys, and maybe the panel wants to comment on it.
I think we as Protestant and evangelicals, but let me first say, I think we as Protestant and evangelicals under-venerate Mary. She was very important. She was a vessel for our Lord and Savior. I think that we as evangelicals and Protestants, we've overcorrected. We don't talk about Mary enough. We don't venerate her enough. Mary was clearly important to early Christians. There's something there. In fact, I believe one of the ways that we fix toxic feminism in America is Mary is the solution. Have more young ladies be pious, be reverent, to be full of faith, slow to anger, slow to words at times. Mary is a phenomenal example, and I think a counter to so much of the toxicity of feminism in the modern era. But let me...
So yeah, I agree. There's all these different clips with Father John Strickland, and he was very cordial with Father John explaining Orthodoxy, and Father John was also soft on, but he did explain the differences and why Orthodoxy takes umbrage with regarding Protestantism. Joshua Schmidt throws in 10, says, hi guys, I'm trying to join, but the link in the description is for a previous stream. Yeah, I don't have the link for today. I was just, in case some of the guys weren't going to be able to make it, we're going to keep it, you know, just the guys that are on the screen today. So appreciate you, Joshua Schmidt. Rachel throws in 5, says, much love to you, gentlemen. Thank you for the stream. Well, thank you, Rachel. Dev throws in 2, Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on Charlie Kirk. Amen. Melly throws in, gives an additional 5 COTEL Crew memberships. Thank you, Melly. Kenneth Wells throws in 5, says, word of caution, watch for radicalization and nudges for revenge and justice, especially in online groups. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, this is a great way to Fed trap like Christian conservatives into a revenge narrative.
And that's something to take into account too, because whenever you know you're being manipulated when people are playing on your emotions, and that's something too. As you know, we talked about how the leftists in general do not have a value for human life. The fact is, the very oligarchs that promote this leftism do not value the lives of the leftist cannon fodder that they plan on using for their own aims and power. And that's the thing, just to watch out for it. You know, don't make oneself, you know, try to avoid. I'm not saying like be a eternal skeptic and everything, but in the sense of whenever someone's playing on your emotions, whenever something or some group, you know, take it like what Elon's doing, for example, they're always doing it for their own ends.
Right.
And that's something you got to take into account. And when time comes to act and do, you know, when it comes time to act as a man, let's say in defense of your family or your locality, your home, your nation, you want to be making that decision with a cool and level head.
To be honest, I think conservatives are going to keep a cool and level head. They typically do. I don't think we're at that point, if you meant by turning point, that point where the right's actually going to react. But like Lord Voldemort said, he's been saying for the last year, watch out for false flags.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do think that that's a highly likely scenario is they're gonna, some leftist group is activated, and they're gonna go and pretend to be conservative right wing, and so that's what to watch for. Watch out for false flags. But I generally have just the demeanor of conservatives and stuff like that. Like, I don't think they're going to rise up to violence. I don't think it's anywhere near that kind of point, no matter how bad, things may seem right now.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you as well. Do you guys have anything you want to say, BLA?
Somebody super chatted about how are people supposed to not feel anger and something like, paraphrasing, anger and vengeance with this thing. I don't know what to offer except, Paul quotes Deuteronomy, says, vengeance is mine. The day of their doom will come swiftly. Am I right, Father Deacon? And I think that I think people like that are watching the show right now tend to be a little more ice cold in the best way about this sort of thing. And I think that's an important way to be, to not let Fed posting and oligarchs drive your emotional baggage. I mean, if you're walking across the parking lot at the Wawa and a guy says he's going to kill you, then that's different. Or hurry up, you taking too fucking long when I'm buying cigarettes, and it's the guy in a Vietnam veteran hat yelling at me. It's funny, but that's the sort of thing that occurs in your daily life when we have, like Jose said, you take care of your family and your friends. I think that one thing this does reiterate is that, people should, like Father Deacon was saying, be involved in, you should be involved at least in your daily life or in your mindset and what you believe in terms of having a political orientation in some way, and caring about this sort of thing. But I do think it is generally a mistake to go to mass political rallies. We've seen that since 2020. I mean, not only are you walking into a place where you're going to get photographed and all that stuff, but anything could happen, anything like this. And especially, I saw the video, and there's like moms with kids on their shoulders and stuff. And, I know that and it's terrible. And I know that they think that it's, they're in Mormon country or whatever, and that nothing's going to happen. But it just shows you that anything is possible in the world right now, and that you really have to take care of yourself. If you go on the subway or you go on the DC train or the DC subway and you have a wife and kids, you really have to fucking keep your head on a swivel, as the guys say, and you really have to watch out for yourself. It's like driving a car. It's like when you drive around, you always have to be aware. You could get T-boned in 2 seconds. Anything can happen to you, and you have to sort of stay prepared for that sort of thing. You can't we don't live in a world where you can just, send your daughter on the public bus anymore in San Francisco or something and think, oh, it's okay. We know the community. The community is in major cities, especially, is huge. It's gigantic. You don't know. So I think this sort of thing, I mean, it really does. I'm watching a clip of it right now, and he's just sitting there 1 second, and then the next second he's gone. That really does speak for, the way we're all, it's our time. It's all of our time at some point, but this is just, it's awful. And there's certain things that you can do to, stay out of this sort of situation. I suppose you don't want to be you don't want to get trampled either. So I don't know. It's crazy.
Right. And the thing is, this is just one incident that was caught on film. Think of the sheer number of incidents. I mean, you can look at the statistics that are not caught on film.
Right.
Like, I know for me and my wife, I mentioned, like, when we were newlyweds and, living in a studio apartment and, not so rich. I know one person mentioned in one of the super chats that you have Hispanics who are anti-Black and others who are not so much. I mean, just a little bit of insight into that. So when my wife and I went on walks for our date nights, there was an ice cream man. His name was Adelaido Bernabeu Urias that we would buy popsicles from. And in 2020, there was 4 it was 4 young black men, although the fourth has never been caught, who drove up, pulled up in front of where he was, selling popsicles and ice cream and stuff. 3 of them got out of the car, walked up to him, shot him multiple times, and got back in the car and drove off. They didn't steal. Like, he was an ice cream guy, so he had plenty of cash. They didn't take a single dime, and they didn't even take ice cream. They literally just stopped in the middle of the road, walked out, shot him up. This elderly fellow, and drove right off. And that's what do you call it? Like, that's something. There are other incidents like that too, but that one, it's just that's what urban life in America is like.
Right.
And that's just the reality. It's especially if a man's going to have a family, or you want to have a family, you cannot have your head buried into the sand of the realities of the threats that exist for your wife and your children. And also, even if you're not a married man, we do have a duty towards protecting our parents, especially and our uncles, aunts, etc., when they're elderly. Being aware of, the fact is the government, even your local government, city governments in particular, if they're Democrat run, they're not going to do anything to protect you. I have a friend who's on the APD, Austin Police Department, and he told me in 2020, he's like, if anything happens to your wife, there is the odds of of just having an investigator look at the report that's filed is like 1 in 9. So the only person who's going to be there to protect your wife and the craziness that's happening in a city like Austin, if you live in Austin, the only person who's going to protect your wife, your daughters, your young sons is you. Like, that's all there is. And, the men within your community, if you have one. And that's just the reality of the situation of American cities. And, as we see with, again, as I mentioned before with DC, this is by choice, by the ruling class who run these respective cities.
Right.
Guys, I'm going to have to depart. So I wanted to say
Okay.
Thank you for having me on, and good to see all
Thank
of you.
you for joining and sharing your wisdom.
We'll keep this all in our prayers, obviously, and keep a cool head. And, I said forgiveness is a release from captivity, from the memory of the past. And so all sins are captivity. They keep us from becoming who God intends us to be. So don't let this hold you captive. That doesn't mean forget, doesn't mean not being politically active and calling for law and order and stuff like that. But just, first things first, don't get in your passions and let yourself be held captive and prevent your attempt at theosis. So that's what I'll leave all you guys with.
All right. Well, thank you, Father. God
Thank
bless
you, guys. God bless.
Let me just speed through some of the rest of these, and if you guys can help me answer any questions that may come up, and we can say some closing comments or anything that you guys want to address before we hop off. We still got a pretty sizable audience. We're, and shout out to everybody who's here and supported. God bless you guys. Smash that like. BLA, go subscribe to Baselit Analyzer. Go subscribe to Patristic Faith, where Father Deacon Doctor shares his wisdom. And go to Dr. Michael Moeller and follow him for the latest stuff on peptides, testosterone, male hormones, stuff like that. And
follow our friends. Obviously, you brought up Andrew earlier, and you can't help but think of Andrew with this stuff, and being in public debates with people. And of course, you think about him. So I think it's, honestly, it's more important than ever, I think, to follow our friends and to go follow the Crucible, go follow Andrew, and everybody here I know follows Jay, follows Andrew, and that's all I want to say about that. What this brings to mind, but I'm also thankful that nobody that we know was involved in this, and so it's fucked up, dude. It's pretty. It is,
man. Post from website Jezebel from 2 days ago. We paid some Etsy witches to curse Charlie Kirk. This is a spiritual war.
Yeah. Do you remember though when they Lana Del Rey and they put the curse on Trump on the first one, and then the third time, this time around, they made the statement about the same thing, and then the witches came out and made a public statement and said on behalf of the Witch Foundation or whatever that he's got a force field around him. It's too strong. We can't penetrate it.
Nick Bucci throws in 10, says, how do I not hate as an Orthodox Christian as I feel so angry? What is the direction after this? There is pure evil. There is pure evil all permeating the earth. Father asking for advice. Nick, refer to what Father Deacon kind of addressed that question earlier. Do appreciate the support. But yeah, just
Talk to your spiritual father. That's the
talk
first
to your
thing.
spiritual father. Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll just give something that's a parallel, like in my wife's extended family. So it was referred to as La Operación in Puerto Rico, but there was a massive sterilization campaign by the federal government in Puerto Rico for decades and decades in the 20th century. And my grandmother-in-law was sterilized after the 5th kid. So she was actually one of the victims in that. And like, it came out to like, so far, the federal government's admitted to sterilizing like 35% of all Puerto Rican women in the 20th century as part of that operation. And what do you call it? And so the way you fight, how do you fight against that kind of evil? You make more babies. I mean, so that really is it. And also don't trust doctors, because my wife's other grandmother-in-law explicitly said, don't go to hospitals, because if you go to hospitals, you won't be able to get pregnant again. So she had 13 kids. So it's, and I'm just saying, ironically, there were prior to the last time that someone attacked the U.S. Capitol building before January 6th, which, false flag, but there was actually the last time there was actually a real attack was, I think it was actually back in the 50s, maybe in the 60s, but it was 50s. But it was specifically a bunch of Puerto Rican nationalists who attacked, and they tried to shoot up the congressman. And the reason was because of these sterilizations that they were doing. And they didn't accomplish anything. I mean, they didn't, actually manage to, unlike January 6th, they actually did get rounds off and were shooting inside of, inside the Capitol building. So it was an actual attack, but they never managed to get to any congressmen, and their actions didn't accomplish anything. Right. Whereas, my one grandmother-in-law, who's like, all right, I'm just not going to trust doctors. And, she ended up having 13 kids. So, that's how you fight back. It's not, violence isn't, I mean, yes, sometimes violence is the answer, but right. For a lot of things, we're not that, if the time's not yet, focus on creating new life.
Yeah.
And
it's hard to see the long-term fight. This is a generational spiritual war, and revenge, for those that are going to use that term, is not in the immediate moment. Who do you even go after? We don't even know who's ultimately behind it. It's normal to feel all the anger and the rage and the frustration with American society, but there's nobody to direct it to. Take that energy and direct it towards productive means. So Melly threw in another 10, says RIP Charlie Kirk. Melly throws in 2 more, says getting to the goal. Thank you, Melly. Joshua Smith threw in 5, says I was just going to say, keep your parish brothers close. Amen. The experiment is over. The debate has been lost. It's time for wisdom and vigilance. True. Glitchy Rhythm throws in 5, says Christ has already won. Stay positive. I was never a big fan of Charlie Kirk, but this is disturbing. Lord, God have mercy on us. He is a righteous judge. Amen. Matthew Johnson throws in 5, says vengeful son cometh, Lord have mercy. Amen. And Melly throws in 2 with prayer hands. Thank you very much, Melly. Jordan Johnson threw in a very generous $50 super chat. Thank you so much, Jordan. He says, I can't say what I want as I have written this comment 5 times. Thank you, YouTube. Charlie Kirk will be missed. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on your servant, Charlie. And, okay. So the eyes are the leather strap of the anus. Throws in 5, says, in case you're wondering, my YouTube handle is a Muslim Hadith. I had no idea. I had no idea what the name was referring. So, okay. Thanks for that clarity. I do appreciate it, because you sounded orthodox in the first comment, and I was like, what the, all right. So, okay. Thanks for that clarification. I do appreciate. And then Melly threw in a generous $20. Thank you so much, Melly, for the support today. He said, never forget what happened today. Charlie Kirk should always be remembered. And H. Brasi said, FDA, it's been a while. Can you confirm? Sorry, FDA already left. H. Brasi, I apologize. Inform the new chat members on the insane subreddit dedicated to defrocking you. For anybody that isn't privy to it, go check it out. It's weird, but also hilarious. Well, thank you, H. Brasi. I apologize. I didn't get to that sooner. We were kind of talking. I didn't want to mess up the flow of the conversation. And Father Deacon's already left. John Vandershoot throws in 3 and says, a ton of my female friends have contacted me about Irina and Charlie. Something is happening. Or a ton of my male friends, I'm sorry, friends have contacted me about Irina and Charlie. Something is happening. Yeah, something is happening. So And we just had a couple more come in. Nick Bucci says, DPH, I'm in the Logos Academy. The group gives me solace and refuge in the madness outside the church and in my prayer. God bless and Lord have mercy. Well, thank you so much, brother, for being part of the Academy. Really appreciate you. And Kingdom Kid throws in 5, says, thank you for the stream. Well, thank you, sister, for the support. So now we've gotten through all the comments. Is there anything you guys want to address specifically before we wrap up, or anything you want to say?
No, I'll just say that I don't know. I don't think they're going to catch anyone. I think this looks
Suspicious.
Yeah, it looks a little suspicious. Yeah, it looks a little CIA, M group, typical par for the course stuff here. So I don't know if they're going to catch anybody, and if they do, look for a patsy, I suppose. But this stuff happens so much. You want to tell yourself that you don't want to be blackpilled about stuff, or you don't want to be. The problem with the conspiracy world is that people can go too far, and everything's a side. Now this is big, but not. We have to have maximum discernment here and coolness, and so I don't know what's going to happen with this. But thank you so much, man. Appreciate you, DPH.
You want to give your shill?
Well, I don't know if I want to promote anything on this one with this whole thing going on. But yeah, I guess I can promote my channel. I'm at Basel Analyzer at YouTube. So thank you to the panel. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to Jose, and I'm glad Father Deacon was here, especially. So I hope everybody takes it easy and chills. And nobody's coming to save us except for Christ, who's going to judge us all. So that's about all I got. Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all. I'm gonna head out. That was my
go ahead.
You got it.
All right, peace, you guys.
Go ahead, Jose.
All right. The how to put it is things are going to get worse, and they're going to keep getting worse. It's but at the end of the tunnel, they will get better. And one thing I will say, one thing I wanted to point out about the French Revolution and the sexual revolution that preceded it, the full effects of a sexual revolution take 3 generations, 3 full generations. So about 75 to 90 years before their full effects are felt. So if you're using the 60s as the beginning, then things as a whole in the West, but America in particular, are going to keep degrading. It takes the damage that's done by that is going to take generations to turn around. Mm-hmm. If you look at Russia after the rejection of Saint Tsar Nicholas II in the February Revolution, that's what led to the October Revolution. That's what opened the door for the Bolsheviks to rule Russia. And that's, what's the word I'm trying to put it? And that's where you have Russia in essentially a time of captivity for 70 years, similar to how, there was a point where Israel was in captivity for 70 years. So it's, it's interesting. Like if one wants to learn things about, Orthodox conception of race, you can read the Russian saints about Russianness. And they do love their Russianness. But one thing you'll find, a repeated theme, is that the Russianness without Orthodoxy is worthless. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. The faith is what comes first. And then comes everything else follows. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then everything else will be added unto you. And that's not a a prosperity gospel verse. It's not about Bentleys and Benjamins. That is, that's about if you put the faith first, and you can have a shot at a good marriage. You put the faith first, you can have a shot at being a good parent and having a good family life. Right. And that's the long-term solution to the problems that face our society. It doesn't appear that one individual person's repentance can matter that much, but just remember Abraham, where he was asking Jesus, like the theophany, it was Christ in the Old Testament. He was asking, what if there's 50 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah? What if there's 40, 30, 20, 10? And Christ says, for the sake of 10, I will spare the cities. So that's a thing to take into account. It's one thing we all can do is try to strive to be one of those 10.
Right. We had a couple super chats come in. Harry Serpanos threw in 5 last night. I wasn't able to get to. Says due to antigen sin, no respiratory infection vaccine works, and they knew this in the 1960s. Don't work. Make the immune system weak and unable to respond to new variants. Injections aren't a natural way to present a virus to the body. Only nasal, oral, maybe. Fair enough. Yeah, we talked about that with RFK last night. And then Harry throws another 5. Says I feel sad for Charlie's family. May God comfort them. Thanks, DPH, Father Ananias, Jose, Mike, and BLA for doing this. And God bless you all. Father Ananias nailed it. These people are truly narcissistic, Machiavellian sociopaths. There is no love inside them. And Dr. Vagisil threw in $1, said, the men who did nothing to save the woman are the result of punishment of masculinity, low trust society, and no sense of duty because of the lack of open dialogue of God's love in mainstream media. It's sadly not surprising. And let me just check Dono chat. Looks like we're caught up. And then Melly threw in another 10, said a prayer for Charlie Kirk and his family. Thank you so much, Melly. And Tapio Farms threw in 5, says, if we don't secure power, we will be ruled by our enemies. Fair enough. Jose, thank you so much, brother, for hopping on. And again, of course, man, always enjoy your insights and your perspective on things. God bless you and your family. Major thank you to Father Deacon Dr. Ananias, BLA, and Dr. Michael Moeller for stopping in today. And I'll see you guys in the next one. I don't really have much to say in closing, but I truly, truly appreciate all the support, guys. Keep the Kirk family and the soul of Charlie Kirk in your prayers. We know he's not Orthodox. We know we had difference of opinions, but it's not gonna hurt your salvation to pray for the soul of somebody who lost their life to obviously evil in our country and the spiritual war that's underway and presenting itself in physical form. So God bless all you. God bless your families. I hope everybody stays safe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. As always, until then, God bless.